Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast of the Storm, social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all of our nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, and we now return to your regularly scheduled podcast of the storm because we were sidelined by a theme month there for most of February, and as is usually the case, whenever we do anything else other than our weekly shtick on this show, the world just goes, "Oh, here, have all the news cycles,"
Mhm.
and now we have a month and a half worth of catching up to do. Good lord.
And I am your host last time I want to be the brainstorm of pop culture. As I want to do doing tonight, and hello, Ed Brewer says, "What's up, my dude?"
Hello, Ed.
Yeah, so we are gonna first off, we're gonna play catch up with the stuff we didn't get to last of January. So we're gonna be picking up on an article that we started but never got to finish.
Yeah.
Which is hold on, let me pull it up. Let me um, damn it. It is well just so like I have it here. This is from humanevents.com, written by Bill Hurrell. This January 4th, 2022. Hollywood consultant amidst glee started the wokeness epidemic. And we were in the middle of discussing it when we stopped. And I lost my place.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I agree that Glee was one of the first examples of the encroaching of wokeness, but I don't think it's fair to say that it started anything. I think it was just the first symptom. Is probably more accurate.
Chrono not. I see what you did there with the name. That's good. Yeah. How you doing, man? Uh, yeah, we are gonna pick up where we left off. Well, we're gonna go back a little bit just so we have context of what we were.
Yeah, but the article we got about halfway through of in the end of January, we're gonna take a running jump off a short pier and see where it goes.
Right. Okay. Now, as I don't have time to summarize the plot of each season in exhaustive detail, from where the reader will have to take my word for it about what happens on the show. However, before I get into analyzing plot elements, I do want to draw. Damn it. Sorry. I drank a lot of soda before we popped on, so. Okay. However, before I get into analyzing plot elements, I do want to draw the reader's attention to two important points about the cast of characters, which may have been lost in listing them off. Namely, the members of New Directions are a diversity and equity inclusion committee's dream. Uh, equity, not equity. Equity.
Yeah.
I don't know words. You have you have multiple Asian students, one black girl who compounds marginalization by being fat, a lesbian couple, one of whom is Latina, a gay kid, a Jewish girl with gay parents, a disabled boy, a Jewish football player, and the lone straight white guy, Finn, who just happens to also be the character who consistently makes the most mistakes.
Again, I don't dispute that Glee is probably a classic example of the beginnings of the wokeness the social justice epidemic. I refuse to really entertain the term wokeness other than ironically because it doesn't actually describe anything. Social justice is perfectly descriptive and it's what they call themselves a lot of the time. So, you know, it's accurate terminology is accurate, inaccurate terminology is inaccurate, and therefore I shall stick with the accurate terminology. It's the beginning of the social justice wave, but I don't think it was causal to anything. I think what it was the first the first symptom, sort of like the couple of days before you catch a cold when you find yourself sneezing more than you otherwise should. That's what Glee is in relation to the social justice onslaught in which we now find ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, anyway.
Moving on.
Next.
Okay. In other words, from a critical theory perspective, everyone except Finn in this show is oppressed or marginalized in air quotes. And even Finn has to face some marginalization when dealing with his one-time girlfriend's pregnancy. Quinn, who manages to earn her stripes as a marginalized person by being a teen mother. You know, that actually doesn't happen a lot as people make you think, as TV would make you think. Teenage pregnancy, I mean.
Mm.
To my knowledge, because the whole time I went to school, I did not hear, like high school, I did not hear. Oh. Hey, Corrupt.
Sorry it took me so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry it took me so long. I didn't realize I got a message on Twitter until just a few minutes ago. How long have y'all been going? For an hour?
No, we only just started like 10 minutes ago. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're finishing up an article we started at the end of January, where a guy tries to claim that Glee was the start of the wokeness epidemic, basically.
Oh, really? I think I saw that. I saw someone say. I saw a video like thumbnail that said like Glee is like the start of like the woke shit, but I didn't watch the video.
Yeah, my contrary supposition to that is that it didn't cause the wokeness epidemic or the social justice epidemic. It was the first symptom of it, probably is more accurate to say.
I could see that. I could see both. I could see both perspectives.
Chrononaut says, "Goddamn, you are alive still, Corrupt."
Wait, say that again.
It's in the comments right now.
What did he say?
Goddamn, you are alive still, Corrupt. And then Ed Burr says, "There's been a Corrupt sighting."
Yes, I am. I used to be like, I don't think England team cares for me anymore though.
Yeah, I kind of fell out of my niche as far as his content goes as well. Like it got to the point where I couldn't finish a sentence or make a point without seemingly derailing the conversation. So I just was like, you know what? I'm clearly not contributing anything to this discussion, and I want to be able to finish the sentence. So, yeah.
Really? You left? Oh wow. And you like the main reason I said that is because like England team like doesn't seem to have any interest in really talking to me anymore. So I was like, okay, I guess fuck me then. But like I can respect that. Like
Yeah,
he did a crowded show.
Yeah, I felt like I was a third wheel, and I felt like because I wasn't allowed to talk as often as I wanted to, by the time I would address a point that someone raised 20 minutes ago, they would already be on to 3 points from that. So I just was like, you know what? Nope. He doesn't want me to finish talking, so I would just be like, nope, I'm good. I will come back as and when you guys talk about something that I particularly can contribute on.
Is it really,
very rare?
Is it really that crowded on his show now?
Well, Venkman kind of took up most of the co-host spots that other people used to fill.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we were replaced by this Venkman person?
Oh, you never met Venkman?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, I guess he did show up around the time you kind of got off into the weeds there a little bit. But yeah, he kind of uses Venkman in the same way he used to use me and you, kind of as the sounding board.
I see.
Chrononaut says, "I don't think Corrupt still remembers us."
You don't think what?
I don't think Corrupt still remembers us.
I remember everybody who used to talk. I remember everybody. The thing is, like, I remember all y'all and everyone. Like, I just got disconnected from the internet for like a long time. But I remember all y'all. I love all y'all. I got nothing but love for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, shall we continue with the? I feel like there should be a Glee pun in there somewhere, but I can't think of one at this particular moment. God damn it!
Also, full disclosure, I've never seen Glee.
I've never seen. I saw one. I saw a partial episode of one. I think when I was younger.
I think it's before my time.
Yeah, it is.
I've listened to some of the songs, and in particular, they have my favorite version of "Baby It's Cold Outside." But other than that, I don't really know much about Glee.
I'm only aware of like two things. One, Grant Gustin was on there apparently. The guy plays Flash on CW, and the actress Jane Lynch. And I only know her because she played Sam's mom on iCarly. She's also just a really funny actress. Any other thing I've seen her in.
Yeah, she was the bitchy Cruella DeVille coach, right?
Yes. I think. I don't know. Chrononauts, it's on the CW as a superpowered Glee called The Flash.
I didn't even remember that people. I didn't even think people remembered me. Holy shit!
You'd be surprised. But anyway, let's actually get into the article again.
Secondly, and here the reader, take my word for it, the absolute most consistent message that Glee drills into its viewers is that its protagonists are supposed to be at the bottom of the high school food chain. They are outcasts, dorks, losers. In fact, one of the show's few original songs literally brands them losers as a point of pride. The triumphal anthem, "Loser Like Me," as in you want to be / a loser like me.
Well, I mean, social justice and like the woke shit in general depends on a underdog dynamic. Like that's what it thrives on. It thrives on a kind of like a victimhood. So
Well, I think to be fair, a lot of just teen targeted stuff in general
I would agree with
fits somewhere in that niche because
I-
let's be honest, when you're a teenager, it's a hell of a lot more relatable to relate to the outcast than it is to relate to the type A pricks because
I agree with that.
it's been like almost a decade since I've even been in high school, and I can tell you that I still don't get how the fuck the type A to use the modern day lingo, the Chads and Stacy's work.
Like I agree with you. What I'm saying is like, and what I think this guy is saying is that like, while that is true, it also depends on that dynamic in order to.
Yeah, social justice latches onto that paradigm and turns it up to an 11 because reasons. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I think both. I think both things are true. Like social justice kind of relies on things to parasite onto, so it can thrive that way.
That's what it does. It takes anything it can get its hands on and injects itself into it. But I just want to be 100% clear, and let's not act like the outcast approach of all teen content didn't well predate modern conceptions of social justice.
It does. It definitely does.
Especially in the 90s and 2000s. Like
it definitely does. People
Daria, Malcolm in the Middle.
It definitely does. People love underdogs and they love rooting for underdogs. That's why a lot of anime protagonists are underdogs.
Well, and it's also when you're a teenager and everything in the world feels alien and unorthodox to you. It's easy to buy yourself as some kind of underdog unless you happen to be in the 1% of the 1% of the type A people who are just the golden children as I call them.
Basically, like my whole point was that like both things are true. that
Mhm.
the underdog thing, the underdog role does sort of like predate social justice by a lot, but it also like but social justice
Is fuel to the
relies-
fire that social justice tries to stoke. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, it also relies on that status in order to thrive and do its thing, basically.
Mhm.
I'm back.
Welcome back. You missed the thrilling conversation.
Oh no, I heard you all. Like my room is really right next to the kitchen. I was getting a burger and water.
Oh well, I'm definitely, yeah, I want some burgers.
Yeah. Honestly, a part of me thinks I should probably soundproof my room.
Well, I mean, you don't say anything too weird or perverted, so I think you should be fine.
Well, no, it's just so like I don't like hear all the commotion going out. Like again, like I'm right next to the kitchen, so you like,
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
or I hear everything like outside because I'm also like right in the backyard as well.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah. I do not think I have the money to do that.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's continue.
I brought enough for me, Chrononaut. Yeah, Chrononaut just asked, did you bring enough for everyone, Brainstormer? I'm assuming burgers, and I brought enough for me, which is just one.
And I wouldn't want one anyway, as we've established. And
Yeah,
Team
again,
Brainstormer's aghast reaction.
That will always be the weirdest thing I know about Dalton, is that he does not like sandwiches or burgers.
Why don't you like sandwiches or burgers? That's so.
Well, okay, let me correct that. He likes grilled cheese sandwiches. I mean, that's just a given at this point.
Grilled cheese is the one exception to my no sandwiches rule, because
How very
I
queer.
may be a weirdo, but I'm not inhuman.
How very queer. You don't like burgers, really?
No.
But he does like hot dogs.
You like hot dogs, but you don't like burgers. Like,
Yes.
why? Like, why? I'm curious. Like, is it the texture or something? Like,
Yeah, it's a texture thing. I think we had this conversation once before about my odd food preferences, and
do you like ground beef?
no,
Oh, you don't like beef.
not especially. No, like I can, like roast beef is pretty much the only way I eat it, generally.
Oh, but you don't like ground beef, like hamburger, or
No,
or
nothing.
anything
Yeah,
like
no.
that. So
That's right.
that, I guess, that solves the mystery of why you don't like burgers. I mean, it's still blasphemous, but at least like
at least we can understand you before we tie you to the pyre instead of the blade.
exactly. At least we like the heretic's mindset before we can cast stones. You know.
Son of a bitch.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
It always makes me laugh that is where Brainstormer draws the line, though. That, like, of all the weird shit that I exemplify and or am and do, it's like where he draws the line is, no, you have odd food preferences. That's where the line is. Like, okay.
Yeah. Fuck. Hell. Okay. Sorry. Leg was cramping up, I think.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't know. My leg cramped up, I think. All right. However, besides the fact that the cast routinely bursts into perfectly choreographed song and dance numbers in the middle of school, this might be the least plausible part of the show. By the time the first New Directions class graduates, they are not only a decorated glee club, but most of their members are either members of the cheerleading squad or of the football team, or have romantic relationships with members of said squad/team. In any real American high school, this would mark the New Directions as anything but social pariahs, and yet we are expected to believe they are marginalized because they like to sing.
Yeah, and that's actually a fairly fair point, because even High School Musical, for all of its Disney Channel camp, gets this right in that Sharpay is the like head drama geek, and she is also the most type A of the type A bitches.
Yeah, like
So
Yeah, like wanting to sing doesn't necessarily mean that people think you're some sort of outcast loser. I mean,
In fact, most of the wannabe pop stars wind up being cheerleaders anyway, in my experience. So
pretty much, yeah. A lot of pop stars were like cheerleaders and people who were popular in school. But like male singers and shit were popular dudes in fucking school and shit. So yeah,
yeah,
like,
there's a reason why the teenage heartthrob archetype exists in people's minds.
Hmm.
It always made me laugh in high school when the like stuck up churchy cheerleader types were singing along to Taylor Swift, and there's even a line in Taylor Swift's "You Belong with Me" that talks about how she wasn't a cheerleader, and yet the pompous cheerleader bitches are the ones that are singing along with it usually, or were in my high school. It always makes me quietly giggle to myself because it's like, you don't have any idea what the actual content of the song you're singing is, do you?
Chrononaut, even a former Texas governor, Greg Abbott, was a cheerleader.
I didn't know that.
Neither did I. I mean, to be fair, I don't really pay attention to governors and their history, so.
Pretty much, politics.
Whenever I think of male cheerleaders, though, I always think of Mr. Moby from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody saying, "Mama didn't raise no fool," because he basically, somebody gave him shit once on an episode for being a male cheerleader in high school, and he was just like, "Oh, you're right. Beautiful young women in tight, skimpy shorts, lots of physical contact. Sounds absolutely dreadful for a teenage boy." And I was like, you know what? Point taken.
That is.
I've never seen a male cheerleader during my high school years.
Nor have I. I've only heard about them.
Yeah, no, we didn't have any male cheerleaders in my high school either. But
I mean,
all I'm saying is, like, I understood it after watching that one random episode of Sweet Life. It was like, oh, actually, that makes total sense.
I also found out, apparently, like, I never seen them or heard of any events, but apparently my school had a wrestling team.
Oh, your school had a wrestling team?
Apparently, I didn't know that. I never heard anything. I only heard about the football matches.
See, our school was the exact opposite. The wrestling team was where all the type A jocks hung out, and honestly, football became kind of an afterthought in my high school.
Chrononaut. So the article claimed that the SJWs are overgrown high school students trying to reestablish their environment.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Well, I mean, I don't think the article is claiming that, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to claim that because there is a core of the people who generally adhere to social justice as a framework that is, I think, in a lot of cases rooted in either the need to feel put down like a protagonist of a teenage coming of age movie, or a resentful loathing of ever having been put down like the average protagonist of a teenage high school movie. Because you've got two sets within the adherence of social justice. You've got the ugly outcasts who were once actually picked on, who want to get back at the world for it. And then you've got the rich, privileged assholes who want the street cred of having been outcast and marginalized, but can't get it any other way.
I'd say that you have a third typing of people who are like a mix of the two, who are people who probably can't connect with other people socially and sort of isolate themselves, but have like a lot of money due to their parents or their station in life. and so they live vicariously through being like social justice activists on fucking Twitter and shit.
Yeah.
Where they can attack you for making an edgy joke from like 5 years ago.
Yeah. But nevertheless, regardless of how true these various suppositions are, they do loosely qualify as ad hominem arguments. So I would say in most general discussions, they're inadmissible to the discussion. It's just,
I mean,
as long as Chrono was raising the point, it is worth noting that you do have these cross sections within the not necessarily the academic social justice advocates, but in the sort of layman social justice advocacy, you get the Go ahead.
1 second. I wouldn't really say all these are just ad hominems. You can basically use like describing an event isn't necessary. Describing, or at least describing what you believe to be the case, isn't necessarily an ad hom.
Well, okay, but
Like
in general,
mean-
when you focus more on the identity of the person for who upholds a belief system, or you try to psychoanalyze why they hold it more so than actually addressing the point within the framework itself, it always comes off as belittling to me. So I try not to focus on the person holding the idea in as much as I try to focus on the idea being expressed.
Well, I can understand that, but if you're trying to like understand like where someone is coming from or why they might have an opinion, it's informative. It can be informative.
I'm not saying it's a completely worthless discussion to have. I'm just saying, */disclaimer, we're not invalidating anyone for believing in the framework of social justice. In fact, in most cases, I think, especially now, it's just because this is the framework that they're taught to believe. Just like, a Christian in the Deep South in 1950 isn't a Christian because his mom died and he needs God to be his security blanket. He's a Christian because that's probably all he's ever known.
Well, it depends on the context, really. It depends on how you're actually. So here's my thing, right? Like, one, I do get what you're saying, and I do agree to an extent. On the other hand, you can kind of come up with a reason for why someone might espouse the type of opinions they do. Even saying that, oh, well, they were taught this, so they're just mindlessly repeating it. You could say in and of itself is an ad hom.
Well, and again, that's why whenever possible, I ignore the person espousing the thing entirely and just focus on the idea they're espousing.
I get
because
that, but
it foregoes any potential for ad hominem.
I get that, but the thing is, like, you can also discuss a person and why they have the opinion.
Yeah, there's still going to be demographic data and patterns and so on and so forth. I'm just saying that
we talk about, like, you have to talk about that at times.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that in most circumstances it's inadmissible to the discussion. But Chrono was the one that brought it up, so nah. But just to be perfectly clear for anyone who ever watches this, despite the fact that I've noticed those trends, I do not try to use that as a basis for an argument. I will never say you're just a social justice advocate because you're a privileged asshole who wants to feel special, no matter how circumstantially true that may or may not be. And it is circumstantially true in a lot of cases, but it's inadmissible to the discussion of why social justice is a fucked up, stupid ideology.
You're making the, like, it depends, right? Like, in most cases, I don't really disagree. I don't really agree with dismissing any sort of analysis of another person in most cases. I think you have to keep it case by case by case.
Well, when you're discussing ideas, the topic of discussion should remain ideas, not the not the wrapper they come in.
Well, people are like spread these ideas and push these ideas. The ideas don't just come about out of thin air. They come about from people. Like exploring people's circumstance and understanding why a person is the way they is gives you an idea for why these ideas spread.
But it's a bad basis for an argument against the ideas themselves, is what I'm saying. And I prefer to address the ideas themselves as much as possible. Not saying that the person never comes into it, because let's face it, some people are just evil, or some people are just morons, or some people are just, broken, psychologically broken, damaged people. But even the crazy schizophrenic homeless dude who always goes on about the end is nigh might make a decent point about another subject every now and again. It's the rule of, the broken clock is right twice a day. So even if the various disparaging things you can say about a given person or given adherent to a given ideology might be true, that doesn't go anywhere to explain why their ideology is wrong. Their ideology is wrong for its own internally inconsistentness, usually.
I think we're having two different conversations. Like you're talking about like exploring the ideology purity in its entirety. I'm talking about like examining why certain people are attracted to the ideology they might be attracted to. That's why I'm saying like I don't think it's a good idea to speak in absolutes of most because it's like we're like trying to explore two different subjects. You're exploring why an ideology is flawed, and I'm talking about why that ideology may be attractive to certain types of people. I don't think it's an ad hom to say like it might be attracted to a group to person A because of X, Y, and Z factors.
Right, but there always seems to be a validity or invalidity implicit in those kind of discussions. So I abstain from those kind of discussions just on the whole.
I mean, like you're discussing a complex. You're discussing people. Like people are different and have different reasons for doing things. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't think it. But I agree with what you're saying. I just think you're speaking far too absolutely in terms of like.
Well, yeah, but my thing is ultimately the motives of why a person chooses to subscribe to a given ideology don't matter, even if the disparaging even if the most disparaging case you can imagine might be true, it's inadmissible to the discussion as to why they're wrong. Because a lot of people used to do.
I'm not talking about why they're wrong though. Like that's where I think the misconception is coming from. You're talking about like you're wrong because you are a certain way. I'm talking about why people might be attracted to something. You're under the impression that I'm talking about why someone's incorrect because of who they are. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about why someone may be attracted to an ideology, not why they're wrong for X, Y, and Z factors.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is it's a wrong-headed question to begin with because the motives don't matter.
And like not real like again how? Like okay. If we're talking about like why a person might be attracted to social justice, why is it wrong-headed to talk about why they might be attracted to something? Like people discuss these are discussions that are had all the time about tons of things. You brought up demographic data, for example. Like why would it be wrong-headed to have a conversation
because then it just boils down to you only believe this because your head is fucked up for X, Y, or Z reason, or your background is fucked up for X, Y, and Z reason. And I refuse to allow the conversation to be about that. Why you believe something is to me immaterial for exactly the same reason as the the Frederick Worthams of the world going, you like comics because you're psychologically damaged, is a bullshit way of looking at it. So just
that's
removing the best way to avoid that shit is just to remove the identity of the person from the motives entirely. Just remove the motives entirely and talk about the ideas themselves.
But Dalton, that's because you're framing it in a negative way. And when you frame it in that type of context, of course it's going to come off that way. But you can have a discussion about like why someone may be attracted to something. And so like without
no matter what the answer to that question is, though, it's never going to matter, is my point. It's never going to be useful in any further discussion other than just I have identified this reason, which may itself be informed by the biases of people looking for it. So again, it's just...
But you can understand why something is popular like character analysis is important for a lot of reasons. You can understand why someone's attracted to something, why like certain shows are more popular, why certain fiction is more popular, why like certain ideas are popular, and why they might resonate with certain types of people. Like again,
you can do the same thing by looking at just the ideas themselves.
No, you can't. If I look, not always. That's not always true. Like you have to look at people and understand why they might be attracted to something. Sometimes, like certain people's backgrounds and certain people's backgrounds aren't always going to get. Certain people's backgrounds need to be explored and talked about.
But it's not going to be useful for the discussion about the ideas, though. And
what I'm saying is that's why I'm saying we're having two different conversations. You're talking about purely exploring the ideas. I'm talking about exploring people's motivations and methods for why they may be attracted to an idea. Like these are two totally different conversations.
Yeah, but I don't understand what the functional use of the answer to those questions are in this context, though, is the problem.
That's why I'm saying that we're having two that's why I'm saying we're having two different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of your conversation, it probably isn't, but that's why they're two totally different things.
Yeah. But anyway, we've gone off into the weeds on this, so let's get back into the actual article.
Okay. Okay. Fuck was I? Okay. Honestly, the show never really justifies why they're supposed to be outcasts, except with the occasional after-school special style episode with subjects like homophobia or racism. In other words, the oppression of the Glee Club is purely a theoretical function of their identity markers, while the actual on-the-ground social reality they live in marks them as undoubted high school aristocracy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often this actually happens in teen fiction in general, though, because like using the example I brought up earlier of High School Musical, in no reasonable context should we be rooting for Troy. He's the high school golden boy, and yet he's framed as the outcast because he likes to sing and blah 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 blah. So, yeah.
You shouldn't like. Why shouldn't you shouldn't cheer for someone because they're popular? Is that what you're saying? Like, help me out.
What I'm saying is, in any other story, he would be the bully, and yet we're expected to buy him as the hero.
Well, like, what traits would make him a bully, though? I don't know much about the show, so.
No, High School Musical.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So, like, what I'm trying to understand is is Dalton saying that because he's a popular person, he would be a bully? Like I'm not under. Explain this to me again.
I'm just saying that in normal narrative context of your average high school story, he's usually going to be the dick, and the only reason why we're expected to sympathize with him is because the story is told kind of from his point of view.
Okay, so what traits would make him a dick, though? Like, I don't know this show, so
I think it happened again. I think we're having two different conversations.
like, I'm just kidding. I get that we're talking about High School Musical. I'm just saying, why would he be the dick? Is what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is it's sort of facile to try and make the audience root for this character because he has all the stereotypical accoutrements of high school popularity and so on and so forth.
I can agree with that, like, a popular person is normally negatively portrayed in media. I'm just saying, like, why would he in general be? I guess because he's popular. So whatever. You can go ahead.
Right. I think it's safe to say that any conservative should recognize just who an aristocracy that specially, no, fuck, I don't, I don't know words. Claims to be oppressed and is led by a character accused of being a borderline pedant pederast. Resembles Glee's protagonist, unwittingly stand for nothing less than the unjustified persecution complex of elite liberal America.
I think that was presented kind of partisanly because it makes it sound like only conservatives oppose social justice and only air quotes liberals would be in favor of it, and that just isn't so in this day and age.
I agree, but that's how the modern zeitgeist is framed by a lot of media outlets. So.
Well, I know, but it doesn't change the fact that it's wrong and worth pointing out that it's wrong.
I agree with you.
As you know, two examples of leftists who oppose social justice can be found here and here. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's just it annoys me that every conversation that gets had eventually turns into, yeah, and that's why the people I dislike are bad. And it's just like, no,
I agree.
This is outside the conservative liberal dichotomy that every person in American politics wants to turn every issue into.
I agree with you, but that's just how it's framed. Like, if you're anti-woke, you're framed as being conservative or right-wing or something like that. You know?
Yeah, and it doesn't change the fact that it's not true. I think those of us that find ourselves on the left need to occasionally point out that, oh, by the way, I'm not conservative just because I oppose social justice, and being in favor of social justice doesn't make you liberal.
A lot of us that are left, like myself, that are, I guess, anti-woke for the sake of argument. We don't have, like, well, there's a disparity in terms of power, right? Like, people who are, like, woke and super left have, like, large platforms and they're inside media, so they can frame the discussion more.
Yeah, they get to say anyone who disagrees with my moral ideology is not liberal enough there, but still.
Exactly. Whereas we can't really do anything about that except say that, hey, I'm left and I hate woke shit. Yeah. But whereas it's been framed as like, that's why it's been framed as like a conservative versus liberal argument.
Well, I think, to be fair, the conservatives aren't innocent in this regard either, because they've taken up the anti-social justice or anti-wokeness shtick as their badge of honor now.
I mean, that's true. That's true. The reason why I agree. The reason why I didn't bring them up is because I was saying from a perspective of from the perspective of how things are framed. It's usually framed by a lot of left-leaning outlets as like right versus left, and I agree with the right does
Yeah,
that.
it's one of those things of like it ain't 1992 anymore. It's not as simple as red versus blue, guys.
That was a good show.
That I'm not sure if he's being satirical or not when he said that.
What?
Red versus blue. You don't like it?
Yeah, it's the show, the web series. You know,
Yeah, but that's not what I was referencing.
No, I know, but you kind of set it up for me, so.
Yes, I know. Okay, so you were making the joke. Okay, just so we're all clear on how that happened. Okay. I genuinely thought for a second that the only context you had for the dichotomy of red versus blue was that show. Okay.
It's shit now, by the way, if anyone wondering.
I didn't even know it was still going.
Yeah, honestly, go up to season 13. That's when I think it really ended.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I thought I. God damn it. All right. And just like Little America, Glee cannot stop to muster very much sympathy for its one cast member who actually experiences consistent marginalization throughout the series. I refer you back to the unfortunate Jacob Ben Israel. Israel's crime, in the show's eyes, is daring to lust after Rachel Berry, a girl who, I must remind you, is both as Jewish and as much an outcast as he is when the show starts. I don't know what.
I'm not sure what point he's trying to make there. Really?
Let's reread it again.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a sec. Okay. Just like liberal America, Glee cannot seem to muster very much sympathy for its one cast member who actually experiences consistent marginalization throughout the series. I refer you back to the unfortunate Jacob Ben Israel. Israel's crime, in the show's eyes, is daring to lust after Rachel Berry, a girl who, I must remind you, is both as Jewish as much as an outcast as he is when the show starts.
And we're not supposed to see. I think the main problem is that, like, since none of us have seen the show, we don't really have context for the relationship, so that kind of hurts our ability to understand his point.
Maybe.
Should I just continue then?
I mean,
let's keep
It does
going.
give some context. So,
Yeah.
okay, Rachel, however, has her eyes set on the handsome, straight white male captain of the football team, despite being palpably of lower social status than him.
See also every high school romance movie in the history of ever.
I don't-
Dalton's fan fiction.
I've actually read some of it.
See Dalton's fan fiction.
Yeah,
Well,
basically, regardless of whether the protagonist in question is straight or gay, nerdy outcast character lusts after, alpha male jock is like the oldest teen story in the book.
They also always end up together, and it always ends up with him either being too much of an asshole or him falling in love with the nerdy outcast.
Yeah. This isn't an artifact of social justice or wokeness. This is just how teen stories work.
Is he building? Is he including this to build to a point, or is this like
let's find out.
Yeah.
All right.
Continue.
One sec. I gotta clean my glasses. All right. This hypergamorous attraction on her part is treated with the utmost sympathy by the show, while Jacob's clumsy and overzealous but doubtlessly sincere attraction to Rachel is portrayed as either creepy or cringingly funny.
Oh, he's making the men's rights argument of like we overlook it when female hypergamy makes women do something, but when male desire for female companionship makes men do something, then it's creepy by default.
Yeah, I mean
Fair point.
that's basically how things are framed. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. The power of the woman card compels you not to find this ever creepy.
Pretty much. Like when I tell people like my ex stalked me, most people are like, "Oh, that's crazy." But if I were a chick, then
Then you'd have a slot on the 6 o'clock news to cry about it over a microphone.
pretty much, yeah.
Actually, I'm still. To be fair, I'm somewhat apathetic, so my response would be the same, either man or chick.
Yeah, which to be fair is one way of going about it. The other way of going about it would be give men the same degree of empathy we give to women, but that's like beating my head against a brick wall and hoping
Pretty
it'll
much.
go through.
There's a lot of double standards. It's funny because like those double standards between men and women are often like when it comes to women, they're explored and given like time and attention. But when it comes to men, it's either you're told either deal with it or stop complaining. Which I guess
Yeah.
are both the same response.
Well, it even goes back. It even goes back to subtle things or it even goes back to older things. Like, did anyone ever bat an eye when women started wearing trousers? Did anyone? Because even back in the 50s and 60s, you saw women on TV wearing pants all the freaking time. But the only way it's ever acceptable for a man to wear a skirt or a dress would be if they were trans, and that's even after decades of supposed equality initiatives, quote unquote.
Or non-binary or something like that.
Yeah, or you have to either abstain or abdicate your entire man card, or you don't get to dress atypically. But women show up in the early 20th century and say, we'd like to start wearing trousers. Nobody bats an eye.
I mean,
Nobody.
there's this sort of negativity directed towards men who deviate from like a specific. Like it's weird because like you're praised if your deviation from like gender norms matches is feminine in a way.
Yeah, if it's of service to if it's of service to the women, then all the praise shall be yours. But if it's of service to no one but yourself or other men, then you're buzzword bad person.
Yeah, pretty much. Like you're toxically masculine. I don't even think that's a word.
Yeah.
You're
You're
toxically
an incel. You're a gamer. You're a nerd. Blah blah blah. And that's the other thing. For as many inroads as feminism and social justice have made into geek spaces, or as much as they've tried to, all they've done in terms of destigmatizing nerddom is they took all of the negative stereotypes they used to apply to nerds and just started applying them to incels instead. Like it's functionally the same word and usually even applied to the same people, because that's what all this toxic fandom shit is about. They tried to co-opt nerddom, and when a certain section of nerddom, i.e. probably the core of nerddom, went, actually, we do care about things like meritocracy and competency, and you can fuck off, then, they invented the toxic fandom label in order to use the same old geek stereotypes as they always used, just not to all of them anymore.
Let me say, like...
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
I think he might be having an issue with his mic.
No, he's gone.
I know, but maybe he disconnected because he had an issue with his mic.
Hello?
Can you hear us, Corrupt?
Yeah. I accidentally closed the browser window.
Oh, okay. Yep. Anyway, you were saying? You were like mid-sentence. God damn it. Let's give him a second again. Do 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 do.
I'm back. Okay, that was weird.
Okay. Anyway, you were mid-sentence like 2 cycles ago now. Continue where you left off.
What was I talking about? I don't even remember because
I had mentioned how it's ironic that they do the same nerd stereotypes they ever have done. They just shifted it so that now it's incels and toxic fandom.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's basically it's weird too because it really hasn't shifted from gamers that much. It's shifted onto male gamers and how male gamers and men are toxic and evil and bad and stupid shit like that.
Well, like I was saying, I think what happened was they saw geek culture as this poor, oppressed, put upon thing that they could co-opt, like they try with all of the marginalized identities. And then when they got there, assuming to find a lot of broken people in need of rescuing, a lot of geek culture went, actually, we're a space that cares about like meritocracy and hierarchy and all those things that social justice hates. So, GTFO, hence all the fandom gates and so forth. And I genuinely think that the Zoe Quinns and Anita Sarkeesians of the world weren't expecting that. I think they were expecting because this is a weird sidebar, but you always see this whenever feminism or social justice tries to co-opt a new identity for themselves. They always do this thing where they try to conflate any given identity with women or femininity somehow. Like, but they get to speak for black people because black people were oppressed, like the women. They get to speak for gay people because gay people were oppressed, like the women. They get to speak for nerds now because the nerds were oppressed, like the women, and so on and so on and so forth.
What's interesting about that is that, like, of the two groups you've mentioned, for example, they only really talk about the women. Like, they don't care about black men. They don't give a shit about it. Like,
your maleness makes you inadmissible to any sort of empathy, regardless.
Pretty much, we're only useful when it comes to attacking white people. Like, that's basically it. Other than that, we don't get any fucking special treatment. We don't get the same opportunities, or any opportunities we do get are taken away from us and given to black women.
And if you expressed any ideas that don't jive with the hive mind, then you get your black card revoked or your gay card revoked, or so on and so forth.
Exactly. The same goes for gay men. Like, when you're a gay dude or bi, like, no one gives a shit about you. Like, you're only useful as a weapon, or if you call yourself non-binary or trans, then you'll be treated better. But if you're a fucking gay man or something like that, God knows.
Well, and even more than that, that's why for as many gay characters as there are in modern day media of all kinds, you will be hard pressed to find a single masculine gay man. They're all the super effeminate, super big gay Al, I'm super thanks for asking types of gay men. And
yeah.
Oh, dude. Okay, well, full disclosure, I'm straight. Like, I'm the only straight guy here. No offense, guys.
Oh, he's a token hetero.
Oh my god, I am. Actually, I don't know if it's token because I'm the guy who runs this show.
Yeah, you will. Oh, but by their logic, we must have the internalized homophobia, correct?
Exactly. We have internalized.
I mean, I make up for it because I'm also a mutt, genetic wise.
Yeah, we're pretty diverse and inclusive in our diversity.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, go on, Brainstormer. You were gonna say a thing. We completely sidetracked it again.
Said in media on like portrayal of gay men. Granted, it is not entirely something I personally see a problem with, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure you guys know what Arrow is, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
CW show.
Right. I don't know if I talked about this before, but Mr. Terrific, Curtis Holt from Arrow, who was like a really cool character in the comics, actually, like a super confident, masculine dude and all that. It's not that character on the show, only in name. Um, yeah, he's like kind of just. Like, I don't even care if he's gay. Like, if they still made it the same character who's like this super confident, super smart, like badass guy, who, like, if I remember correctly, Mr. Terrific is like the third smartest man in the world,
Yeah,
and yeah, he's not. You don't really see that in the show, which is again, this is more my problem on the merit of the character, I suppose, than the character actually being gay or anything, because they changed that, I think. But my point being, obviously, is like, yeah, I agree with what Dolan says. Like, whenever they do gay characters, they really like make them eat it.
They
Well,
feminize them
yeah,
rather than allowing them to keep any semblance of masculinity.
pretty much. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how long established the character's previous personality was either.
Oh,
The
dude,
second
what's
the
weird?
second they catch the gay, they all of a sudden start lisping
Right.
and flaming and whatnot.
Like, I'm bringing up another example from CW superhero shows. It's gonna be a weird one, but Kate Kane from season 1 of Batwoman. Like, it's also a weird thing. Like, they made the lesbians. In modern culture that I've noticed this kind of trend, and this is a weird sidebar, but
That's the only time masculinity is acceptable, if it's being expressed by a woman who likes
Yeah.
the badge.
Women, lesbian women in particular, are allowed to express masculine or
don't get me wrong, like, I'm sure we're all familiar with tomboys, right?
yeah,
But the thing
Yeah.
is, like, they're also capable of being feminine as well.
yeah.
Well, there are masculine women and there are feminine men, and there are people who exist in between, and there are people who are androgynous and every other fucking thing. It doesn't need to be its own separate box.
The point being, obviously, is like, it's a weird thing is that they feminize men or gay men, and
Masculinized and lesbians.
yeah,
Well, it's because with regards to feminism and social justice, the only way that an identity can gain sympathy is if you can somehow attach it to womanhood or femininity. That's why they can get away with lesbians being masculine, is because they already have their woman cards. No matter how masculine a woman is, she's still going to be considered a woman. Whereas in order for gay men to get sympathy, you have to focus on the flaming, lisping bottom
It's
and
because,
nary a top in sight.
it's because masculinity is demonized as being like aggressive and hostile. And masculine, that's why you see like a lot of masculine men are like, they either don't exist, or if they do exist,
Villains.
they're either evil or like so
Stupid.
watered down. They don't real they're they're just like The Rock, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
And they allow lesbians to get away with masculinity because in the case of the lesbians, again, this is within the context of a social justice framework. In the case of the lesbians, they get to be aggressive because that's just punching up, quote unquote. That's just speaking truth to power, because that's women taking the power back from men, basically. It's the same reason why Captain Marvel is allowed to be a bitch, because she's just sticking it to the patriarchy, don't you know? But if a man exhibits those same tendencies, then he's the asshole, because he's only allowed to do that because he has the aegis of the patriarchy protecting him there, basically.
For some reason, my mind thought of a Robot Chicken sketch to kind of somewhat summarize everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of seeing. Okay, so it's like a God. It's an old Robot Chicken sketch where Marvel and DC heroes are stuck in like an apartment together, and it's like a reality show. And like I'm skimming stuff. Where Wonder Woman says to about the guys is they're afraid of the almighty uterus.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah, that was like made in the early 2000s, I think.
They're afraid of
I'm waiting for some gender studies researcher to see that clip and to start unironically using that term.
They're afraid of the almighty uterus.
Like there's got to be some rad femme version of Wicca out there where somebody actually does basically worship a floating uterus in the sky.
Your mind goes to weird places, Dalton.
Like I'm just saying that because Wicca is already watered down by a lot of feminist crap. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some extremists.
Your entire I guess I don't know what you were referred to it as, but it was basically appropriated by feminists, wasn't it?
Yeah, the entire conversation around magic always gets politicized now, and it's never ever politicized in any way other than, oh, the women that were the victims of the Salem witch trials, the women that were, viewed as too powerful, were always seen as witches, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, bitch, the worst death in the Salem witch trials was Giles Corey, who got crushed to death under heavy boulders because he wouldn't confess. So I don't want. Not only just in that case do I not want to hear it, but the split gender-wise for witch trial accusations was actually about 60-40. So it's not even that much more women that got accused of it, and most of the time it was other women doing the accusing, and most of the time when men were accused, they were viewed as more culpable, because the word warlock, that is the bog standard term for a male witch, is the Anglo-Saxon word for.
Isn't warlock a slur for witches?
Yes, yeah. The reason being, warlock was actually derived from the Anglo-Saxon word for traitor, because in witch trials, when men were accused, they were actually considered accountable for their actions. They were considered active traitors to God, because in the medieval conception, a witch was somebody who made a bargain with the devil, blah, 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 blah. Whereas when women were accused, usually, and you can verify this in the actual trial records that survive, when women were accused of witchcraft, the reason they were punished was so that their soul could be saved. But when men were accused of witchcraft, they were considered entirely culpable for their actions.
Well,
okay.
That's interesting. You don't really see that type of. You don't really hear that from a lot of the teenage girls who are in the fucking witchcraft. It's always like the power of the mood and shit.
Yeah, the sacred feminine goddess energy bullshit. And by the way, Gerald Gardner was the most stereotypical male feminist imaginable because he literally created Wicca by throwing together aspects of English cunning folk magic, a little bit of Aleister Crowley's Golden Dawn shit, and like super male feministy bullshit, so that he had an excuse to engage in orgies with young
Yeah, I'll
women.
be right back.
But yeah, when men were accused of witchcraft, they were considered entirely culpable for their actions. When women were accused, they were considered to have been led astray and in need of being saved. And also, when men were accused, they were usually considered the ringleaders of their various covens, because surely a woman wouldn't sign her soul away of her own free will if she had to be convinced to do it by some male figure, whether that be the devil himself or whether that be a male sorcerer. So yeah, you can take this whole the witch trials were feminist bullshit and shove them up your ass.
Yeah.
But that's a complete sidebar from what we were actually talking about.
Yeah.
When he gets back, we really should get on to the article. I want Corrupt to be here when we get to the Frost thing, at least. So anyway, I've got to go deal with my cat, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I had to let the cat out because she was scratching at the door, and I hate it when she does that. Anyway, while we're waiting for Corrupts, let's Ed asked, could there be truth to that? Which I'm not sure what's that. Ed, what is that in reference to? Are we still waiting on Corrupt?
I think so. I mean, I don't really have anything to say, to be honest.
Okay. I'm unsure about what to do about the dead air. Normally I would sing, but I'm not really sure what to sing, given what we were just talking about. Okay, yeah, Ed, but what specifically was it about is my question, because I don't don't know what you asked the question in relation to, is all. Well, Chrono, I would, but I don't really know what to fill the dead air with.
I think he means like keep going with the article, and we'll catch up Corrupt when he comes back. So,
Okay, we can do that. Yep.
all right. As in a sequence where Jacob is caught masturbating to Rachel's picture in the library. There are many sequences like this, which all lead up to the impression that Jacob is something of a teenage Harvey Weinstein, as described by his accusers.
Wait, they actually reference. How long the fuck did Glee go on? Because I assumed it was dead before the Harvey Weinstein scandal really took hold. Because as far as I know, it started in like 2013. It ended after like 6 seasons. Or actually, no, it was earlier than that. It was like 2010 that it started, and it ended after like 6. Okay, so no, I guess in the last couple seasons they might have referenced it, but
Hold on. Just okay. May 19th, 2009 to March 20th, 2015.
okay, so they maybe in the final season they might have addressed something like Weinstein shaped.
I don't know.
Because I know Me Too occurred after Trump took office, I thought. Because I know it started with a Weinstein scandal, and then I think was it Woody Allen that got thrown under the bus shortly thereafter, and then by then it was Kavanaugh getting Me Too'd, so it was already in full swing by then. So okay, so in the last season they might have referenced something about it, I guess. I was just confused about the timeline. Sorry, folks.
In lieu of the scene, which I'm surprised it aired because it's on. I'm sure they took precautions to make sure it's not like overt, but it's on. Like the show is on Fox, which is what I'm surprised about.
Mm-hmm.
What was I gonna say? That's a weird thing to do in a school library, which I'm assuming is where.
Yeah.
Again, going on my experiences in high school, never heard anything like that happening at all.
It's just edgy teenage dramas being edgy and teenage. I think Degrassi did something similar too, so it's not like it's the first time this kind of thing.
I don't know if I'm just.
And Freaks and Geeks did this basically every episode, so yeah. Which, by the way, is a much better version of this kind of show. If you're interested in this kind of show, my 3 go-tos would be Malcolm in the Middle, Daria, and Freaks and Geeks.
I'm back. There we go.
Okay.
All right, what are you guys talking about?
Well, we were just finishing up the last part of the paragraph there. Basically, the kid Jacob, was caught masturbating to Rachel's picture in the library. Many sequences like that, which all lead up to the impression that Jacob is something of a teenage Harvey Weinstein, as described by his accusers.
What? I mean, it's gross, but like, masturbation is normal.
It's just edgy teenage drama being edgy teenage drama, basically.
What were you saying, Brainstormer?
Oh, well, in the middle of a school library.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting, but like I wouldn't call him Harvey Weinstein though.
I'd also, I also brought up the thing of like I'm aware that it's probably just this whole fiction thing, but in like my high school years, I never ever heard of shit like that.
Nor have I.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Like it's incredibly disgusting. It's just I wouldn't call him Harvey Weinstein though.
Like honestly, the coolest thing in taboo for school, like high school couples doing, is just sneaking off and making out in a place.
Yeah, that's the most I've heard too.
And in my high school, I don't think that anybody got away with that even because my high school was tiny. So
Like you live
there
in
was there was nowhere to go off and hide to do that in order to do that. So
Pretty much, yeah. Like
that's the other thing about these kind of shows. There's always some kind of spare classroom or spare janitor's closet or somewhere where they can go off and make out. And sometimes in some shows there's even like an extra wing of the school that for some reason isn't being used, and it's like, you what now? Like, never, things that never happened for 800.
Okay, moving on. It would be tempting, but not entirely wrong, to treat the portrayal of Jacob Ben Israel as anti-Semitic, and certainly elements of his characterization are right out of the Nazi propaganda film Judd Sud.
Das Juden.
Okay,
It means the Jew, and it's a propaganda film about what the Nazis thought the Jews were like.
the Jew.
Das Juden.
Like, yeah, it's just like really Harvey Weinstein. Like, yeah,
It's the writers being topical
disgusting.
pricks is all that is, basically, is what I'm thinking.
Like, it's incredibly disgusting, and he should have disciplinary action taken against him. But like Harvey Weinstein, like,
It's the writers being. It's the writers pulling a "How do you do, fellow kids? This is what's in the news cycle right now. Isn't it terrible?
no, this is made too.
This is how teenagers talk, right, guys?"
Show. Okay.
as a teenager, I am incredibly appalled that he would sexually assault that picture.
Because that's totally what's on the mind of your average high school student, right, guys? Derp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fucking weird, especially if you walked in on it.
Pretty much.
I think that kid's getting bullied after that, if anything. Like,
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah.
I mean,
and not by any measure am I saying that bullying is therefore okay. I'm just saying that if that were a thing that happened in my high school, everyone would be laughing about it in the space of about one heartbeat of a news cycle.
So that's one of the things that there's this guy named DSP or Dark Side Phil. And even people who are too young to remember him know him because he got caught masturbating live on Twitch.
Oh, he's that guy, right? Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're too young or you don't, or you're not in the space that he operates in, you no doubt you know about him because of that.
Turn off the camera, you son of a bitch. But anyway, moving on with the thing.
I didn't until now, so.
Well, Corrupt and I have both been on the internet a little longer than you, I think. Is the story there?
Also, I don't go into looking into that stuff, so.
Well, you don't. It's one of those you have to be there sort of things. Like when a meme hits.
I mean, it happened on Twitch.
I don't watch Twitch.
Like, you don't watch what do you do, Brainstormer?
I watch YouTube stuff.
Like,
or I'm writing.
I'm curious. What do you watch on YouTube, Brainstormer? Tutorial
video essays mostly, right?
Not lately because there aren't really good ones, or ones that caught my eye. Just kind of game stuff, I guess. or
Like,
analysis videos,
or
or
what
just listen to
videos?
music,
Or what videos?
game videos.
Like video games and shit.
Yeah.
What, do you watch Let's Plays?
Uh no, like I watch like Vanoss Gaming Crew and stuff like that. Uh
What are they called? Vanoss Group? Is that it?
yeah. Well, mostly the Irish guys. They're pretty funny.
Anyway, on with the article.
Yeah.
We're still on top. We're still on topic 1, and it's almost 9:30 already.
Yeah. But given that the show is also extremely charitable toward the objectively much more unpleasant Jewish football player Noah Puckerman, it seems that Jacob's real sin in the show's eyes is not being particularly good looking. In other words, the instant someone who is not conventionally beautiful aspires to be loved by one of the beautiful people, all of Glee's vaunted concern for those victimized by arbitrary social constructs goes right out the window.
Yeah, fair point.
I don't have the context to really agree or disagree.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's making the point that beautiful assholes get away with more shit than unattractive but well-intentioned people.
I mean, I can agree with that in the abstract. It's just I don't really know anything about Glee, so I have no real. It's like I don't have any real opinion, you know.
I don't. None of my bullshit meters are going off with his description, so I'm perfectly willing to believe that that is a thing that happens. So, fair enough. And even if it's not a thing that happens in Glee, I'm sure it's a thing that happens elsewhere. So it's not like it's a non-point. It's just
I can agree with you.
yeah. But anyway, moving forward.
Yeah. Hold on. Sorry. It is hard to miss the similarity to how wokeness, despite its claims to want to eliminate bigotry, is perfectly happy to count counten.
Countenance?
I think so. Content. Countenance, anti-Semitism, and misandry. Certainly, it is troubling that the show treats it as perfectly normal that a woman should aspire to be affectious of a social, to the affections of a social better, in air quotes, but treats a man in a comparable position as a contemptible joke. I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
it's been around for a while. That's not just
Again, it's a standard men's rights argument, and it is one that I do agree with. So fair enough, because it is bullshit. Men are valued for what they do. Women are valued for what they are, and woe betide you if you ever try to step out of either box.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Jacob is the only character in the show who's believable as a bullying victim, but the show has no sympathy for him because he is ugly and uncool, in air quotes, unlike the Glee Club.
Well, yeah, that's like Corrupt and I were saying earlier. It's like they haven't really done much to actually advance the idea of like geekdom or nerddom acceptance. All they've done is off-road all the things they always said about nerds to a particular subset of nerd, i.e., toxic fandom, or just this new thing they came up with called incel. But take a look at any given feminist diatribe about incels and swap out the word incel for nerd, and it becomes almost indistinguishable. Because the funny thing is, usually the toxic fandom diatribes and the incel diatribes are interlinked anyway. So all you've done, woke ass, denizens of geek culture, you hipstery bastards, is you haven't actually changed how people feel about nerds. You just called them something else. And most of the time, the people you're talking about are the same people that used to get called nerds. So, yeah.
Pretty much, they've just switched targets.
Well, yeah, it's not even switching targets. It's just switching the terminology. It's like, okay, we
Oh,
can't
that's
get away
true.
with calling them nerds anymore, so let's call them incels within toxic fandom. And then the demonization diatribes can proceed apace, basically.
Pretty much, they've just you're right. They've actually because they still target the same types of people. It's just like different names for the targets now.
And it's even worse because since they have gotten their hipstery little hands into geekdom in the I love science sort of way, now they can actually attempt to remove the identities of nerds that disagree with them. Like when you, me, Anglin Comics Division, our whole wing of the discussion says anything. It's like, oh, you're just an incel. Oh, you're just, toxic fandom, blah 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 blah
You
blah.
hate women or some shit.
Yeah. You're just misogynist, you're just homophobic, you're just this, you're just that. And then of course the ironic thing happens when like Nerd Wonder shows up or you or I show up and it's like, I'm sorry, we are gay. We categorically cannot be homophobic, so fuck off.
I'm back.
And then starts
Welcome back.
and then comes in the internalized homophobia thing, and it's which by the way, whenever somebody accuses you of internalizing their word for like self-hatred, all that means is we declare that we control your identity, and if you disagree with our control of your identity, then that means you secretly hate yourself. That's all that means. It
Oh,
means
most definitely.
means you have Stockholm syndrome and you've been cynically turned against your own kind, either because you're too stupid or you're too evil. That's what that means.
It's why Kwanzaa called me an Uncle Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I had to. My legs are starting to get a little numb, so it was either go for a quick walk or stab it with a pen. And
You stabbed your leg with a pin?
No. It was either go like get up and like walk around for a bit, like for a couple seconds, just to, or stab
His
it.
legs fell asleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to make a joke. It obviously didn't land.
Wait, does stabbing your leg with a pin work?
I assume stabbing it, just in general, would get the blood flowing.
Yeah. But hey, look on the bright side. At least for you, it's temporary. But Ching.
Don't. Jesus. That was dark, Dalton. Holy shit.
Triple joke.
Does that joke every time I talk about how my legs are falling asleep when I'm sitting here for like 2 hours?
At least your legs work.
It always works.
It's my thing. Dalton is like, at least your legs work.
Honestly, I'm hoping to get some, like when it gets warmer out and stuff. Like I don't know, maybe next month or so, I'll go on some walks every couple days. I haven't been able to walk the last go outside on walks the last 2 years. Everything's happened
because lockdowns and then winter, basically.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. So we haven't really been able to do anything. Let me see.
Anyway, moving on, or anyone else got
back to the thing.
This too is an obvious way in which the show enforced the morality, air quotes, of proto-wokeness, one that only cares about oppression when it happens to be supposedly beautiful, cool people who it is socially acceptable to pity.
I mean,
oh yeah,
not the way I would have phrased it, but he's not wrong.
Oh, son of a bitch! I accidentally cracked my foot.
Jesus, are you okay?
No, I'm fine. Like I didn't twist or anything. I'm just like I just moved in. I heard it like pop.
Ah.
I'm sorry, it just freaked me the fuck out because it was a loud pop.
It's like, what the fuck was that sound? Oh my god! Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, which brings me at last to the most pitiless. Yeah, I think it's pitiless and most unintentionally sympathetic character on the show, Sue Sylvester. There's no point dancing around an obvious point about Sue. She is supposed to be a cartoon villain, bereft of redeeming qualities, and the show regards portraying her as a stereotypical Obama-era Tea Party populist as something that aids that characterization.
Okay, so she's the Sharpay of the show then.
I think that's the coach, played by Jane Lynch.
Oh, okay. That's the Cruella de Vil. She were a gym teacher. There.
In short, the show wants its viewers to believe that conservatives like Sue are cartoon villains bereft of any inner emotional life short of Darwinian winner take all malice. She's a coach.
See, I think you might be politically projecting there just a little bit. I'm sure that is an aspect of it, but I think it's also just the stereotypical, rise up against authority is keeping us down.
Like, not really. I mean, like, how not really. Like, that was pretty common back then. To portray like conservatives and shit is like to portray conservatives that way.
Because we have to act like the 80s and 90s never happened, and we still have all that work to still do.
But like, yeah, like for conservatives were portrayed as basically that, is basically like cartoonishly evil, like
the authority figures, yeah. But that's been a common thing amongst stories since like Dead Poet Society, and this just goes to prove something I've always said about social justice warriors. Is I think one of the reasons why our generations were so easy pickings for social justice is because we were raised on this idea of you have to rise up against authority, you have to fight the power. But the problem is our grandparents are the ones that fought the Nazis. Our great grandparents are the ones that fought the Nazis. Our grandparents are the ones that did like the flower power hippie movement stuff. Our parents are the ones who fought the evangelical traditionalists of yesteryear and so on. So like when our generation was coming up, we were told, we were raised with movies like Dead Poet Society, Patch Adams, all Freedom Riders, all of those. But when it came time for it to be our turn, most of the remaining social causes that would have made sense to fight for are counterintuitive, like men's rights, for example.
Yeah.
So instead of actually finding the areas where we could still make that kind of difference, social justice comes along and is like, have you considered that you could just reinvent all of those things? Because didn't you know that the civil rights movement didn't go far enough? Didn't you know that the sexual revolution didn't go far enough? Didn't you know that the women's rights movement didn't go far enough? And we can still harp on those exact same issues again and again and again forever?
Like, my thing is, I agree with you. My thing is, I don't think the guys like I need I need to see the character myself before I could say whether or not like he's politically projecting. But like as someone who was around for back then, yeah, I'm kind of inclined to agree that she probably was this like scarecrow tea partier who's this scarecrow tea partier.
Yeah,
because that's basically what they were. They were like they were like they were basically like your Trumps, how your Trump supporters are treated.
Yeah,
Like it's not,
the arch conservative patriarch that wants only the traditionalism and the blah 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 and so
yeah,
on and so
that's
forth.
basically it. Yeah.
Moving on.
But I do wonder to what extent that was just like the political affiliations were just window dressing to drive home the anti-authority point, or
I
vice
mean,
versa.
maybe I think like you call it window dressing, but like it exists, but like the framing exists for a reason because
Yeah.
the framing exists for a reason. Like that they're they're a conservative bad guy because that's how they think of conservatives.
Because the 90s and 2000s totally didn't happen, guys, honest. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
move on.
The irony, however, is that in portraying Sue this way, the show ended up putting a lot of uncomfortable truths in her dialogue, something even the show's proto-woke fans noticed, and turned her into less a monstrous antagonist than as something of a court jester mocking the pretensions of the oppressed, in air quotes, Glee Club.
Yeah, I think that's mostly just a failure on the writer's part, because that tends to happen whenever social justice types get in the writer's chair, because they think that if I just quote this person who I think is really, really bad and put their words in the mouth of a villain, that will make the point as to how villainous these ideas are. It's why Ta-Nehisi Coates recently wrote a story where he had Red Skull quote Jordan Peterson and so on.
I wonder what quote he used from Jordan Peterson. I'm curious.
I'd have to actually go and find the. It's not a direct quote, but it's very obvious, like on the nose satire, quote unquote.
Hey, do you guys know that
Red Skull writes a book called The 10 Rules for Life, even.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's because their framework is completely FUBAR. They honestly think that someone like Jordan Peterson is equivalent to somebody like Red Skull, and therefore it makes sense in their heads to put Jordan Peterson's words in the mouth of Red Skull. But to everyone else, all it does is make Red Skull seem like a more reasonable character.
What a reasonable guy.
Yeah.
Frank Weiss.
Yeah. Okay. As fictional portrayals of conservatives go, we could do a lot worse than. All right, no, did I already read this? No. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. As fictional portrayals of conservatives go, we could do a lot worse than Sue, and indeed, the fact that she comes off as so likable despite being written as an ogre is also revelatory when it comes to the weakness of wokeness. While it views its enemies as cartoon villains and treats them with that sort of shrill disdain, it has real trouble not making them sound cool and correct by accident when it does this.
Well, it's because they are isolated in their own little worldview bubble of, I think these things are the problem. Therefore, if I just show everyone else these things, everyone will agree with me that those things are the problem. When in actuality, if you take a thing that you don't find reasonable, but everyone else on the planet will find reasonable, and you put it in the mouth of a villain, all you've done there is make people go, actually, the villain has a point. It's exactly why the media lost their shit over Joker, because they couldn't tell whether Todd Phillips was actually advocating for people to be like Joker, or whether he was saying, be nicer to people, or lest you find more people like the Joker exist. Because even bad people are still people at the end of the day.
Pretty much, and like we need to actually treat them as people. I think I think the reason why you see that happen so often is because of how they perceive these people and their ideas. Like you can't show a bad person in any other light in any other light because because that humanizes them and I think they believe that it humanizes that person's ideas.
Well,
So you have to
it's
put them
exactly
in
the same
people.
reason why a lot of times you'll see attempts by the wokerati or the social justice crowd to view villains as it's sort of the mirror switch or the other side of the coin of let's make Pennywise the clown a gay icon. Let's make the Babadook a gay icon. Let's make Chucky the Killer Doll a gay icon because they it's the wicked approach to all villains. All villains are just misunderstood, and all heroes are just pompous pricks who need to be brought down a peg.
Pretty much, we can't have stories anymore. Everything has to be just social justice proselytizing towards you all the goddamn time.
Yeah, the only morality is our morality, rah.
Pretty much.
Even though that was the exact problem you had, or you said you had, when the Christians were doing it back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's what boggles my mind. The exact same arguments that they used to use against people like Jack Thompson apply to them now, and they can't see it, and it bothers me.
I think they can see it. I think some of them can see it. They just don't care.
Well, okay, that's fair, but
it's being done for the quote unquote right reasons.
yeah, and there are other people like Movie Bob. Movie Bob is the example of this because somebody literally asked him, you say you're in favor of Anita Sarkeesian and you say you're against Jack Thompson. How are their arguments any different? And he just looked at the camera confused, and I was like, you can't possibly be that just immaculately blind, can you, Bob? But no, he is. He genuinely doesn't see how Anita Sarkeesian and Jack Thompson's arguments are the exact fucking same. Just take, violence in the one and swap it for sexism in the other, and they're identical. It's like playing Mad Libs. The actual content of the paragraph is the same. All you change is the buzzword.
I think it's because when you have like a particular ideology, what is happening? I think when you have like a particular ideology that you like adhere to in this like cultish manner, like the last thing you want to do is the last thing people can do is actually like get through to you once your worldview is in danger.
Yeah, it's perfectly exemplified in the old adage or the old social justice adage of there are no bad tactics, only bad targets.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it doesn't matter who you're targeting. If you're targeting them for something horrible, then it doesn't cease to be horrible, you motherfuckers. Anyway, moving on.
Alright. But I digress. The point of this lengthy description of the show is to illustrate something very important. Glee was propagandizing wokeness before anyone knew what wokeness was. I don't think this was conscious. In fact, I think the show was originally meant to be a lot more self-aware, as the first season carries an implicit disdain for its protagonist that utterly vanishes in the second season, where characters return to the screen almost completely rewritten. Kurt, for example, goes from being a cuttingly accurate stereotype of a catty, bitchy gay man to a Christian like martyr whose suffering for his sexuality is implicitly treated as a metaphor for the suffering of all gay people.
Okay, I think that to some extent that might just be the writers pandering to the audience they found, because they might have intended it as a satire, and then a bunch of melodramatic teenagers took it dead seriously, and they were like, okay, shit, now we have an audience that takes us
That's
dead
possible.
seriously. We might want to do something about that.
What'd you say?
Not saying the wokeness was never a part of it, because obviously it was. But this is exactly what I was saying earlier. With I don't think Glee caused this. I think it was just maybe patient zero, for lack of a better word. Like it might have been the first symptom of the issue, rather than.
It's basically just a symptom of a particular culture at the time.
Yeah, because if the writers were capable of writing this, then it was already a thing, and we know, for example, that Portland Antifa has been a thing since at least 2009, because that's when Yvette Filiarca and Chance Driver founded BAM, and that's about as loony social justice as you can get is BAM. At least for now. It might get worse, but
BAM is worse than Antifa. Holy shit.
It's hard to believe that such a thing could exist, but yeah, it's existed, and it's existed since at least 2009. So
pretty much, yeah. I don't like this nose. It's so fat, Nagla.
Yeah. Moving forward.
Okay. Fine. What's more, the plot of the show devolves into incoherence as episodes become little more than framing devices for the real point of the show. Performances of the day's hits by the Glee Club, a trend which arguably hits its nadir when Glee tried to do a cove of the K-pop hit Gangnam Style.
Yeah. Whatever else Glee might be, it's also just a way of making musicals marketable to teenagers, basically. Like the audience of Glee is not that dissimilar from the audience of Degrassi. I just.
I never got into Degrassi.
I did mostly because some of the guys were hot in it. We've had this conversation before.
Wait, that has hot guys? Really?
A couple characters in it were hot, yeah.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
In particular, in Degrassi Next Generation, Riley was cute, and in the original show, I forget what the frick the character's name was. But yeah, there were cute guys in Degrassi, and so I ended up watching for similar reasons as why I watched Twilight, because Taylor Lautner and Kellen Lutz were cute.
Dalton has some secrets, man.
Moving on. If I had to guess what caused these developments, I would assume that the show attracted an audience that was both far larger and far younger than its creators initially expected, and the company making it realize they could monetize it as a promotional vehicle for pop music and liberal social messaging far more easily than as a teen black comedy with singing thrown in.
Yeah, like I said, I think it might have just been they initially pitched it as a satire, then a sizable proportion of the teen, the teen drama audience decided, actually, this is good if you take it directly seriously, and then the writers went, shit, I guess we have to write this as though it's serious now.
That's why I try to stay away from comedy. And I'm not good at writing it, so
it gets corrupted too.
Well, my solution is just to stick with the funny because it's true sort of comedy, because then either way it works. But that requires some self-awareness to understand what the truth is, and ideologues do not have the capability of self-awareness.
Again, I'm more of a physical comedy kind of guy, so.
Yeah, Buster Keaton and so forth and so on.
I threw a pie in his face and went waka waka.
No, I'm talking like Three Stooges, you know.
Nyak, nyak, nyak.
Moving on. But to be fair, again, it was like what I grew up watching. Like I wake up kind of super early in the morning, like at 4 a.m. when I was growing up, and
And there'd always be reruns of Three Stooges.
yeah,
Yeah. I watched a lot of Three Stooges that way too.
the intersexual nature of the cast is almost certainly nothing more than a cynical play to make sure every potential customer who watched the show would have their own Glee character to relate to. In other words, unless anyone had anything to say to that, or
I mean, I think that was more the outcome, not necessarily the reasoning, although that might have played some part in it. But then again, I would have to actually sit down and watch Glee to get a handle on that. And as attractive as Cord Overstreet might be, he's not on screen often enough for me to sit down and watch Glee all the way through.
I like how you can attract Dalton, but with like hot men. Just like, here, watch this.
Like I'm not above eye candy, is all I'm saying. Like I sat through Twilight mostly because Taylor Lautner and Kellen Lutz were cute. I watched Degrassi because the character of Riley Stavros, whose actor I don't know the name of, was cute, and so on and so on and so forth. Like I'm not that hard to figure out. I'm not that hard to please. I just require specific things.
Yeah, there's never been I've never had that for a show. It's mostly been if the story interests me or not.
You've never seen like a hot woman and been like, damn, I want to take a few minutes to watch this.
No, not really, no.
No guilty pleasures for you, Brainstormer?
I don't believe that. It just
full honesty here. No.
And like, I just don't believe that you're immune to like the allure of flesh.
No, I'm not. It's just not my first go-to.
He's just too pure for this world, sweet summer child.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I think more with my actual head than what every other guy does.
I don't know, like, so when you see like an attractive woman, you don't like it just like goes over your head, like nothing registers there.
No, it depends, I guess. It's complicated. Like show wise, no, not really. I'm more interested in the actual story that's being told. You know,
it's not enough to keep you watching, despite how stupid it might be. I think is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I mean,
whereas I can watch Twilight because Taylor Lautner and Kellen Lutz are cute. You would sit there and go, but I have no one to root for with this, so fuck off.
I mean, I can understand like not watching a show, but like not registering it like someone who's like attractive or who attracts you in like a certain way. Like I just don't see that. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it does register.
Then again, Brainstormer has a very particular type, so it takes a lot for a character to be considered attractive according to his standards.
I mean, but no, like Brainstormer just admitted that it does register. Like he does see like a girl and he goes, "Oh, okay, I do like that."
Right, but that's not what I look for in shows.
Like,
his guilty pleasure threshold is lower, I guess, than ours.
Fair enough. Like, fair enough, but I'm just saying, like, when you see a cute girl or something, you do at least acknowledge it at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not immune to it. It's not the first thing I look for. Ed Brewer says no one watched Baywatch for the plot. I've never seen Baywatch. I've heard, I know the memes and stuff, and the jokes about it, I've never seen it.
I don't know. I mean, Baywatch wasn't that bad plot wise. I mean, if you liked Charlie's Angels, you'd like Baywatch, or if you liked MacGyver, you'd probably like Baywatch too, because they're all that same sort of person who shouldn't be investigating because of whatever line of work they find themselves in, winds up in investigative scenarios over and over because circumstance. That's a bit that's the plot of a lot of like 70s and 80s shows.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep.
In other words, it was not deliberate political scheming that made Glee into what its best character calls a symphony of self-congratulatory sodomy. It was focus grouped cynicism that made the first woke show exist.
See, I don't entirely agree with that either. As much as cynical commercialism might have played a factor in it, I'm sure it did. It's because the writers in Hollywood at the time were the product of art schools that taught Frankfurt School bullshit. That taught that the male gaze was toxic, that taught that meritocracy is a harmful social construct, that taught, that aesthetic normality is just social construct and so on and so forth.
I mean, yeah, essentially, you're going to write what you know or what you were taught. Like that's going to be, if your framework was what Dalton mentioned, then you're going to operate within that framework, like characters.
That's what you're going to bring to any show you end up working on, regardless.
Pretty much, yeah.
And while the suits and the accountants can look at that and go, actually, there might be a market we can squeeze out of that as well. While that side of the business equation might be thinking in those terms, there is actually a creative impetus for thinking in these terms. Granted, it's a completely backwards one, and I've never seen it create good art. I've only ever seen it get in the way of otherwise good art. But if that's the cause du jour in art school, if we're all supposed to believe that everything Marcel Duchamp said was gospel, or everything that Michel Foucault said was gospel, and so on and so forth, then regardless of whether it's marketable or not, you're going to show up with that mindset. It just so happens that the business side of things was able to look at that and go, not only is it moral, like you're saying it is, but we can also make money off of it.
Pretty much, because if you believe that if you adhere to a certain moral framework, and art school and the school you go to learn to improve and become better, it's basically telling you to do this thing, and this is how you do this thing a certain way. You're gonna.
This is what all the intelligent people think, and you're one of the intelligent people, right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Pretty much, yeah. It's basically it's just basically people are going to do what they were learned and taught to do.
Yeah,
they're not going to write a character a certain way because that's just, it never occurred to them because that's not how they were taught.
And what's more, even the cynical, opportunistic businessman is probably going to look at that and go, "You mean I can make money and be a moral person? Sign me up, friend." Because despite how opportunistic, the average businessman might be, they're still people at the end of the day, and all people want to see themselves as the good guy, or at least on the side of the good guy. And if a writer comes into your office as and you're the business head of the company and go, "Here's a 5,000 word dissertation on why my particular set of themes or my particular schema for writing this story is academically endorsed and absolutely 100% moral," that is going to play at least some factor in the business decision, because there are a lot of business decisions that people could make that they don't, simply because they find it immoral. There's a reason why most Western companies outsource their child labor to third world countries rather than setting it up in in the US. It's because even though in the abstract they might not have a problem with it, in practical terms, if they see actual child labor occurring right in front of their eyes, they're going to be squigged out by it because they're raised in a context where, businessmen are still people, just like, any kind of person is still a person.
I think that's less to do with it being moral and more. I think it's less to do with them being moral and more to do with it just working, because like most of these like social issues that Glee advocates aren't necessarily things that aren't necessarily like super black and white, right? It's not like, oh, if I don't
No,
believe.
I'm just saying within the like aristocracy of Hollywood or the aristocracy of the like film industry, that's kind of how I think that's how it works in their heads. It's not only can I make money at this, but it's also pushing what all the intelligent people say, what all the academics say is a moral position anyway. So like that's probably to some degree an add-on. Whereas one of the reasons, no matter how much, like for example, Comicsgate, the old school Comicsgate made the argument, we are your actual audience, so you should, if you're gonna pander to anybody, you should pander to your actual fans. No matter how many times we made that argument, we never really got directly pandered to most of the time because the intelligentsia and the academic cathedral were so thoroughly convinced that we were all terrible people that no matter how much we might control their bottom lines, they're not going to pander to us because they've been told that we're all immoral.
I mean, I would say that's part of it. I would certainly say that's part of it. Yeah.
Whereas it oftentimes works in the inverse. No matter how many times you make the argument to them, social justice doesn't make money or good stories, go woke, go broke, etc. There's still somebody in Hollywood is still going to try to make a social justice story or a woke story because even if it doesn't make money, it's still morally justifiable, and therefore I can sleep at night.
I mean, part of that is also due to the capture of due to the capture of the press.
Yeah, media and the universities and so, but yeah, the
Yeah.
intelligentsia, all the people who spend their lives thinking about this stuff say this is the one right answer, so it must be the one right answer. And I'm not well versed enough in this field of study to think about it, even if it does sound counterintuitive to me. So I guess rubber stamp everything they want because
that's what they also use to look at demographic changes and shit, and they're like, oh, this must be what's popular.
Yeah, it's why you get all these how do you do fellow kids moments, because this is what all my focus group people tell me the kids are into these days. So, and anyone who's against these things is actually immoral. So kill as many, kill as many birds as possible with as few stones as possible, I guess is the long and the short of it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Move on.
Yep.
And it might have been harmless, as so many shallow shows that are popular with teenagers become harmless with time. Who, after all, still harbors a deep-seated identification with High School Musical. But unfortunately, its attempts to give everyone watching someone to relate to made Glee the unintended plague ship carrying the ideology that is now seeking to retake all American society in the age of high school so as to forever live out its fans' adolescent fantasies of belonging.
Well, and see, this is the other reason why I disagree with that Glee caused this, because around the same time, a lot of different shows were doing this. Like, even to some extent, Legend of Korra. A lot of the reason, like Brainstorm and I watched season 1 of Legend of Korra when we used to hang out on Thursdays, and a lot of the reasons why Legend of Korra isn't as good as Avatar: The Last Airbender is because they did force in a lot of these, social justice-y and equality-based frameworks, like the Equalist from Republic City that came out of fucking nowhere, because at no point in the original Avatar did they ever build up this animosity between benders and non-benders. They just conjured that up out of thin air because it was the appropriate zeitgeist at the time. Same thing with Steven Universe. Same thing with like there are a lot of examples of shows, even from established franchises, getting social justice-ified because this was the art school mentality of the time, and it still is the art school mentality of the time. That's why it keeps happening.
Well, mainly my main issue with Legend of Korra was kind of the pacing of it. It felt like it needed to be longer. And I'm sorry, this is a sidebar, but I just kind of wanted to bring my thoughts on it since it was brought up.
Well, that too, but also Korra is an unlikable character because she's a Mary Sue. The Equalists come out of nowhere because we have to push the equality narrative. Tenzin has to be stupid because, down with the patriarchal authority figures, and on and on and on it goes.
I think you find this especially in female oriented or male or shows with minority male characters, because so much of the people who like make those types of shows like adhere to this sort of cancerous ideology.
Mm-hmm. For example, compare Static Shock from the 2000s to any show in the modern era that has a black protagonist or a series of black protagonists. Compare the Proud Family to any show that has a series of black protagonists or so on. There's a notable difference because before it was just, let's have these characters who happen to have this thing in common and let's make interesting characters. Whereas now it's, let's make characters who are the avatars of BLM. Why number 5 from Codename Kids Next Door was able to be a character in her own right, and modern day characters like Mr. Nancy from American Gods has to spew a BLM stump speech every 5 minutes.
Jesus, like every time you tell me about the shows you watch, they always sound horrible.
There really isn't that much good TV these days.
Also, something I realized long after Kids Next Door was done is that number 5's dad was Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
I never picked up on that until years later.
I picked up on it earlier on because I used to watch The Cosby Show on Nick at Night all the time.
That was a good show.
And what happened though?
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's a shame Bill Cosby is forever more persona non grata.
Pretty much. They don't even air that show anymore.
And speaking of that, did you see the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air edgy reboot?
Oh, that looks awful. Bel-Air.
Terrible.
I remember there was like a movie trailer like a few years ago, surfing around the internet, saying like it looked the same as this.
Yeah, they actually seem to have taken that parody concept of let's do Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as a drama and actually went and did it.
They did, yeah. Now it's this just dark and just
And
like
of course
serious.
they turned Carlton into an Uncle Tom because
Yeah,
he acts too white in Derp, and it's just like, oh my god.
yeah. Like, what did he say? This is my town. I belong here. I live here. This is my.
I haven't checked it out. I don't want to. Also because I'm
It's
probably gonna get a lot of shit for this, but well, one, it was before my time, Fresh Prince of Bel Air. But I never really got into the show, even like with reruns and stuff.
yeah, my thing is, and this is gonna seem like a really weird reference, but in the same way that that Wanda in WandaVision was kind of raised on reruns of old sitcoms, I watched a lot of TV Land and Nick at Night when I was a kid. So I even though a lot of those shows were technically before my time too, I grew up on them, and I grew up knowing that they were like the shows that aired in like the 90s and so on. So I I've always, not to be completely pretentious about it, but I've always had what my high school economics teacher referred to as an old soul. Like I've always been fascinated with history and like older shows and older movies.
I mean, you are old, so
Only 4 years older than you there, you young whippersnapper.
God, I feel so old.
I mean, I felt old when I was in my teens, so
Yeah, but I am actually old, so
How old are you, Kara?
I'm like in my 30s.
Ah, so you're not that much older than me. I'm 26.
Uh,
end of the
27 in July.
end of the year, I'll be 23.
I thought you were 21.
That was 2 years ago.
Oh, well, at some point you were 21, so I'm half right. There you go.
Yeah, it's like whenever I bring up my age, you always say I thought you were 23, and I think it's because I was 23 when we met, and you just don't have a good gauge of like time actually passing.
Wait, you were 23 when I met you?
I think so. It
So
would have
I'm only
been,
like 4 years?
yeah, because it would have been 2017, I think, when we met, right? March of
Yeah,
2017.
yeah.
Now you feel old, huh?
Because that was right after Black Panther had come out, and he hosted that all black panel on what black nerds actually think of Black Panther, and then like the episode after that was when I jumped on, so that would have been when we met there or thereabouts.
Was that? How did I meet you? Is that how I met you?
I'm pretty sure you and E hit it off on the Black Panther stream, and then he kept bringing you and Mr. E back, and I got on around that same time.
I thought you were there before me.
I could have sworn you and Mr. E both showed up on the Black Panther review stream, but I could be wrong.
Maybe we did, because I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how I even met England team.
Yeah, I'm almost certain because I remember when I used to just be in the audience of E's live streams, him talking about how he was so pissed off with how, the conversation around Black Panther was that he was like the first black superhero or something, and he wanted to actually get some black nerds' actual opinions of it, and that was when you and Mr. E came on the scene, I'm pretty sure.
I know that. Well, maybe you're right. I know that England team's audience initially did not like me. I know that.
Yeah, well, ditto.
Oh yeah, they didn't like either of us for like different reasons.
I remember once I defended Snagglepuss being in a gay relationship because he's an anthropomorphic cat, and everyone thought I was defending bestiality.
Oh yeah, and then you said like you made a comment about pedophilia or some shit like if a child can consent or something.
Uh, my argument was the reason why bestiality and pedophilia are both wrong is because physiological and psychological harm will occur to the recipient. But if there was a situation where no physiological or psychological harm would happen to them, like for example, if the animal was anthropomorphic or could talk and had human level intellect and could consent, then it would be wrong. Same thing with I think the example I gave was um Billy Batson Captain Marvel because he if you screw him while he's in Captain Marvel mode, he has superhuman strength and human and adult intellect, therefore it doesn't count as pedophilia because no physiological or psychological harm is going to happen to the kid because of it.
Moving on.
Yeah.
We're still on the first topic.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Moving right along. I think he's close to the end of this, so we can move on to G4 after that. I want Corrupt's reaction to G4 because
Yeah,
I know how much you love cringe, Corrupt, and
we're not anywhere near the end of this article.
oh god. Fuck. Moving on.
So I actually think we're gonna call it because that was only the first half of it.
Hold on.
Merciful fucking gods.
I get it. I gotta step out for like 1 minute.
Okay.
Anybody want to hear why England team's audience hates me or disliked me?
Go on. Yeah.
Because I asked. There was in the comics there. Iceman's what was it? His young self was sent back to the present.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had young Iceman, like young Ice. Well, you had like young Iceman as a little boy and like adult Iceman, right? And I said, and I asked if it would be masturbation or pedophilia if he fucked himself.
Ah, okay. Yep. I remember that now, actually. Yeah.
And then England team's audience was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Well, it's a legitimate question.
Thank you.
If you go back in time and screw yourself, not that I ever would, because no part of me, no version of me was ever attracted to by my own standards. But if that were to happen, would you be committing pedophilia or just masturbation?
All right, there we go.
I'm inclined to believe just masturbation, but I guess it depends on how far you go back.
Yeah, I think it's masturbation too.
Like if you go back to a time when your younger self was sexually active, then I think it's just masturbation.
I agree.
Well, personally, I think it's just the purest form of narcissism. But
Well, yeah, but that's what makes it masturbation because it's literally just self gratification in both cases.
Pretty much like I'm so beautiful, I will fuck myself as a child.
Yeah, not happening.
I don't know why. I don't know why Robot Chicken always comes up every time when someone like you guys when you two like talk. Like I always think of a Robot Chicken sketch because you always bring up the perfect time. So Mickey and Donald are at a bar, and yeah, where Donald
this can only go so many places.
Where Donald tries to talk Mickey into hooking up with Minnie, who obviously I'm pretty sure everyone knows basically look like
exactly like him, but with a bow and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, as Mickey put it, she looks like me, but in drag. His words, like I'm not paraphrasing, like those are his actual words.
He is not wrong.
Yeah, and Donald doesn't get it. He says, oh, so. And he says, "What? I'm a fucking narcissist. I have to look at myself while I'm bust." And then like he just leaves when he sees she's coming over to him. So he just leaves. And then Donald turns to see Daisy, who's looking at him, and he just says, "Oh my!" I actually might be paraphrasing on Donald. somewhat. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I am a hideous woman. And then he just like leans into her and says, "Want to get out of here?"
Oh dear.
So yeah,
Although to be fair, Daisy's design is better than Minnie's design because she actually does look different than them.
Hello? Oh.
oh,
Yeah. We can hear you.
I was afraid I closed the browser again by accident.
No, you're good. We can hear you. You are on air.
Yeah, give me 1 second. You guys continue.
Okay.
I mean that was all I had. So
So do you want to just call it there on this article and then switch to the G4 thing then?
yeah, give me a second. All right, I got somewhat set up.
Huzzah.
Well, it doesn't have any captions.
Hmm.
Well, let me read it. It has captions, but it's auto-generated.
Ah.
Yeah.
Cause you auto-generated captions.
Chrononauts, ONG, Live, Jared Stevens. Oh, live, Jared Stevens.
Slow murder. Slow murder.
Long live. Okay. Yeah, you misspelled it. Okay. Long live Jared Stevens.
No. Long, merciful death followed by longer torture in some kind of hell dimension.
That's the subway guy, right?
No.
No.
That's the guy what decided to melt down the Helm of Fate and turn it into throwing knives and use the Cloak of Destiny as a bandage.
Oh. That's good. That's good, Chrononaut. I don't know why.
Okay, fuck both of you then. Just fuck both of you.
I thought he meant Jared. You know, Jared from Subway. That's the only Jared I've ever heard of. So.
No, Jared Stevens was the edgy Dr. Fate that dropped the Doctor and just went by Fate in the 90s because edgy.
Hmm.
He's Rob Liefeld's Dr. Fate basically. He was so bad at it that the Helm, when he died, was just like, nope, fuck this shit, and reformed itself. It was the only good part of that storyline, was just the Helm being like, and that was really dumb.
Also, again, Chrononaut. Any news on Doctor Fate in DCU? Looks promising from what we saw.
He's showing up in Black Adam, so we will see, but
I mean, to me, it looks promising. I like the look.
I wish I could be more optimistic, but 99% of people who know Dr. Fate know him from the Young Justice incarnation, which is the stupid possession retconned incarnation. So I worry about whether they're going to go through with the possession thing or not. Because if they do, then it's shit because the possession retcon is stupid. But if they don't, you're going to get a lot of people who are AirSats Dr. Fate fans who are going to be confused as to why the possession retcon isn't a thing, because they only know him from Young Justice and Injustice, where the possession retcon was kind of a thing.
Well, to be fair, everything I've seen from like the preview we got from that thing, or DC We Need Heroes, it looks like they're not doing that because it looks like he's in control of it. Like one thing he's able to
Yeah,
take stuff.
I'm hoping, especially because this is the Justice Society, they'll go with the Golden Age Dr. Fate, which is before the possession retcon. But I also know that you gotta kind of pander to the normies, and I worry that they're gonna pander to the normies by instituting the possession retcon where it doesn't fucking belong.
Well,
Because
I think we'll wait and see.
yeah, because most normies know him from either the Young Justice cartoon or from the Injustice video game, and both of those had the possession retcon. But who knows? Maybe this movie will be so good that people will forget about the stupid possession retcon and we'll get actual Golden Age Dr. Fate back in the comics again, because the comics always like to change themselves to coincide with the movies anyway. So
I
I
don't
can
think
dream.
Marvel does that often. Does that, but I don't think DC does that.
Yeah, they do. They're more subtle about it usually, but I expect that if the JSA becomes the new hot button thing, there's probably going to be a Black Adam series, and there's probably going to be a new Justice Society series, and Naboo willing, there will be a Dr. Fate series. And I don't even care if they take my idea for fixing him, as long as they fix him. Because I have this whole idea for Dr. Fate where where Naboo goes on a journey of self-discovery, figuring out where he went wrong by possessing people. And then Kent Nelson ends up getting resurrected, and basically it's Golden Age Fate again. Sans possession retcon. It was even gonna have Destiny of the Endless show up and be the one who gave him the cloak of Destiny, because that just makes too much sense. Cloak of Destiny comes from Destiny of the Endless. And we know that the Endless do interact with the Lords of Order and Chaos, because when Season of Mist rolls around and Dream is whining and dining over the key to Hell, the Lords of Order and Chaos show up to threaten him, which goes about as well as you can expect from antagonizing the Lord of Dreams in the Realm of Dreams, i.e., not at all, and fuck you for trying. But oh well. People always do that, and it's so it's stupid, but I think it's intentionally stupid. Because you're supposed to go, oh, this is not gonna go well for them, and it's funny. Granted, I think Azazel gets off the worst in that storyline because he ends up in a snow globe of doom, but oh well. Or actually, is it Azazel? Azazel. Whichever it happens to be. I think Azazel probably is more right, but the EA co-editing douchebags always call him Azazel, so I picked up the pronunciation issue from him. God damn it. We're still waiting on Corrupt.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Um. Hmm. Anyone read anything new? Yeah, any new comics anyone wants to talk about? Like chat.
I'm debating getting the new volume of Doctor Strange Epic Collection because it collects the Roger Stern run, which is a really good run. But it's like $37, and I only have 50 in my Amazon account, so I'm debating whether or not to spring for it or not. Because there are also some really nice hardcover omnibuses for Hellboy, and I'm thinking about getting those too. And then there's the issue of grimoires. There's some interesting grimoires that I found that I would also like to spring for. It's this weird thing that always happens to me. I want so many things that I end up getting none of them because I can't decide which of the things I want first. Yeah, because I have like $50 that I still haven't spent even from Christmas that I haven't spent anything on just because I can't decide between things. Anyway, should we start, do you think, or should we wait for Corrupt some more?
Yeah, honestly, I do think we should at least get some done. We
Yeah.
had to restart it for Corrupt when it gets here.
Yeah. Like we did with the one Joker video there.
Oh, Chrononaut reading Mirror War Star Trek set in the Imperial Universe. It's worth it.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Sorry about
Okay, he's back. Huzzah. Perfect
I'm
timing.
Sorry about that. What are you guys talking about? I had to step away for a minute.
We were just kind of shooting the shit, waiting for you to come back so we start the next thing.
All right, what are we starting?
The G4 Frosk feminism video.
Oh no.
I haven't. Yeah, okay. So it's Frost takes on treatment of women in gaming from XPlay Live. This was released January 12th, 2022. I heard about this. Honestly, Dalton talked me into looking into this. Because full disclosure, I didn't care enough. Mainly because I'm not really a gaming person.
Hey, like something came up. Hold on, I might have to leave kind of early-ish for a little bit. Sorry about that, Dalton. Like something.
No, you're good. I was actually surprised that you showed up this week. So
All right, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
Come back. I'll try and come back. I'll see you guys later.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, let's be Nana. Yes.
Yep. No.
So when this originally happened, and my gaming grievance was actually going to be about Red Dead Online. So
Wait, sorry. I don't think. God damn it! I forgot to add the audio, like in case like I have to. So like it's not just coming out of my speaker.
Okay, because I heard it, but I'm not sure
Yeah,
if the audience heard it.
I have to mute myself or something. It still can play the audio. That's
Okay, that works.
that's my bad.
Nope, you're good.
All right, banana.
Banana.
So when this originally happened, and my gaming grievance was actually going to be about Red Dead Online. So the subreddit for Red Dead Online, I'm a huge Red Dead Online player. I love Red Dead Redemption 2. I think it's probably my favorite game of all time. And right now, the Red Dead Online community are trying to get this hashtag going called Save Red Dead Online. And they've got it covered by Kotaku.
Again, I'm not really a gamer, so
I don't really have any problems with this particular section because she's just talking about how much she likes Red Dead Redemption Online, and that's fine. Like that part I have no issue with because that's actual genuine geek shit. It's what she gets into here in a minute that set the entire internet ablaze there for all of the news cycle.
okay. Like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
Covered by Kotaku, Polygon, Game Rants, like Forbes, I think, also did a coverage of it. And they think that this will get Rockstar's attention and Rockstar will come back to them and give them exactly what they want. And we can actually scroll this down. I'll tell you when to stop scrolling. Good. Stop right there.
Now I got none.
okay, I will say for the record that if you think Kotaku and Polygon are legitimate gaming sites, then you are a moron. At least since around about 2012, at least, because they were some of the sites publishing gamers or gamer is a dead identity articles. So yeah, no, Kotaku and Polygon can fuck themselves. They're nothing but social justice ideologues in the same way that Bleeding Cool so often is. So yeah, no. And Forbes really has no place to comment on games at all because they shouldn't even be getting involved, but somehow they are. So nah. Banana.
But I'm here to tell you, and you're going to have to cut this B-roll in a second because it's done. And what I do think that there is a larger discussion about Red Dead Online and that we need to have eventually about game design versus immersive experience and comparing the Red Dead Online multiplayer experience versus the solo player one. But I actually want to talk about something so much more.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of the mindfuck. Banana.
So much more important than Red Dead Online. Sexism in gaming. In joining G4...
This is not where I thought we were going, but I'm here.
I had no idea.
I'm listening. Yeah.
In joining G4, I was ecstatic to be part of something that I grew up watching as a child.
Okay, and see, this is the thing, because there is no such thing. None. Niet, no point, niente. And for the record, the mindless clapping of the hipster squad over there is exactly why I can get away with saying that, because you guys are part of the establishment of the gaming media. You are. And you guys are lousy with this feminism bullshit circa about 2013, and that's the other thing. Guys, 2013 called, they want their ideology back. You guys still, for some reason, don't appear to have gotten over the fact that Gamergate ever existed. But anyway, we'll get into that as we go. Banana.
Mm-hmm. 1 sec, I was making sure comments were... Alright. Yep.
But every time G4 is brought up in various channels, even in this YouTube channel, we have the chat in front of us. I can see you. Without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous hosts. It's somehow...
Talk to him, Frost!
It has somehow been expected that you can talk about how much you jerk.
Okay, because, darling, it is very obvious that you are not there to be a presence to be enjoyed. You are there to spread an ideology. And therein lies the problem, because, let's be honest with ourselves here, a large part of the other female G4 hosts' appeal was their bubbly, attractive personalities and their bubbly, attractive bodies, but that's neither here nor there. And their genuine passion for gaming. Whereas you, given the opportunity to levy grievances at the gaming industry, are going to read from the same fucking hymn sheet as people like Brianna Wu, Zoe Quinn, and Denise Sarkeesian as though it's still 2013. And thereby have demonstrated that you are not an actual gamer. You are an ideologue trying to use gaming as a means to an end rather than an end in itself. And also, you happen to be a bitchy, ugly person who is filling a role traditionally filled by extremely bubbly, extroverted people that also happen to pander to actual gaming concerns rather than using it as an ideological mouthpiece or a means to an end. Moving on. Banana.
Worked off to women as a compliment.
That
It's
shit
not
weird.
a compliment.
It's weird.
It's dehumanizing and it's weird. Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you.
Okay, but they
No,
go ahead.
They don't like the support. I'm using air quotes, obviously. It felt very hollow, almost condescending in a way. Like that's how I picked up on it.
Yeah, they're hipsters jerking themselves off over an ideological talking point more than anything, I would imagine. But
and also, like, I don't. To be fair, the only thing of G4 I watched growing up was that show that it was super funny. I can't remember what it was called. Where it had Ryan Dunn in it and the female co-host. I can't remember her name.
mm-hmm.
Where like they did effectively tests, like see if certain things could be could actually happen and stuff. It was super funny. Like I can't remember the name of it though. It's
But here's the thing, Frost. Here's the thing. When people found those women attractive, they took it in stride and considered it a compliment. You are making it an ideological issue because you don't appear to understand the notion. And I've explained this many, many times, but I will explain it once again for the benefit of the tape. Being able to be found attractive is a power at someone's disposal. It is not a victimhood that they are forced to carry. Okay? Being attractive is a good thing, and it is a compliment when someone finds you attractive. It may not be phrased in the way you like. It may not be, buttressed with a bunch of miladies and curtsies and whatnot, but the ability to be found attractive by anyone is a power at the person's disposal. It is not a victimhood. But you want it to be, and you actually consider it insulting if the wrong kind of person finds you attractive. Or if they remark they don't find you attractive. And that's the other thing. If being easy on the eyes is such a burden that is forced upon women, then you should be glad that you don't have it. You should be glad that people don't remark on you being, fat material, etc. But instead of counting your blessings from this thing that you supposedly consider such a burden not happening to you, you instead bitch that it did ever happen and bitch that it's not happening. And honestly, this isn't even the part of the video that is to me the biggest red flag. The biggest red flag actually comes in a little later, But as previously stated, Frosk, games aren't there to be a tool for feminism. So as long as we're talking about things that are being used for things that aren't their de facto purpose, games aren't there to be an ideological tool for you. Games aren't there to be co-opted and forced in this kind of socio-political utilitarianism you all seem so enamored with. So as long as we're talking about things that are being used in a way that isn't in line with their original purpose, then that's more pressing to me. Anyway, going on.
Mm-hmm.
Banana.
Hey, she cooking, y'all.
And that's just obvious sexism. You don't need to explicitly objectify women or declare that you hate women to be sexist. Just go ahead and check out Thorn's latest meltdown on Twitter for some spark notes. Now, here at XPlay, our reviews are written and produced by a team of people. There are too many games for one person.
See, that to me is the more shocking, the more damning thing. What she's essentially saying is she's just a mouthpiece, her opinions aren't her own, and she thinks that that's somehow going to get her out of this. When in actuality, I think what most people who criticize her are criticizing is she a real gamer, or is she just, a mouthpiece for feminism? And Frosk, do you not see how I don't actually hold any of these opinions? I'm just reading a script. Doesn't exactly get you out of the line of fire there, because people want to hear the opinions of fellow gamers. They want to hear opinions from people that they like because of their understanding and competency with regards to games. So if you're just a talking head, if you're just a mouthpiece, if you're just reading from a script that somebody else wrote, then you just went and proved people's point, the people that are criticizing you, that you're not a real gamer, that you are just a corporate shill, that you are just a mouthpiece. And that's honestly is more offensive or insulting to gamers than the fact that you're not attractive or that you're not eye candy or whatever. It's that you, A, view games as some sort of means to an end, and B, apparently don't even know enough to speak about games extemporaneously, which is what people look for in commentators, the ability to have extemporaneous stream of consciousness commentary, not reading from a script that somebody else wrote, because that just means that the commentary you're making is even more disingenuous than people thought it was. Bitch. Banana.
Okay. Yeah, banana.
To shoulder the burden. So we divide and conquer. And when we use language like we or I, that's the reviewer. That's coming from the mouth and experience of the reviewer reading that review. And that's not to say that Gerard, TBH, Adam, or myself don't contribute to the reviews. We absolutely do. But it'll always be in varying degrees.
So what good are you for the purpose that this channel exists for?
I'll be honest. This doesn't seem to have this going all over.
Yeah, at first it was sexism. Now it's you get angry because we're essentially faking it until we make it, and again, in my opinion, her opinions about sexism are not even the most egregious part of this particular diatribe. It's the I'm admitting to being a talking head, so let me off the hook bullshit. Like, no, the thing that people were mad about is that you're not a real gamer. So if you're arguing that you are a real gamer, you probably shouldn't open with, I'm just reading a script, guys, don't at me. Or it's not my fault. Like, no, bitch, that's the point. We don't want somebody who is reading from somebody else's script or somebody else's spark notes. We want somebody who can speak extemporaneously and organically from their own experience about this shit. You don't listen to a critic who hasn't seen a movie. You listen to a critic who watches a movie and then tells you what they thought. See? You don't listen to a food critic who, has 1,001 food allergies and can't eat anything. That would be remarkably stupid. You don't listen to the, members of I fucking love science on Facebook. You listen to actual people who have gone to school for the various sciences that you're interested in, and so on and so forth. You want a point of reference from somebody who actually understands and engages with the material. Because otherwise, you're just essentially a human marionette for somebody else's thoughts and somebody else's words. And usually, those thoughts and words are handicapped by the fact that they are scripted instead of extemporaneous. Because when it's just a human being talking, they can actually make insights into something. Whereas when it's reading from a script, unless it's a script you write yourself or like just like an outline that you're reading from so that you can stay on point and so forth, unless that, then all you're doing is doing what computers and shit have been able to do for a long time. Like, they make audiobooks, they make e-readers, they make Siri, they make Cortana that are just voices that can say things in a vaguely pleasant manner. You need to have more autonomy than something a computer with no artificial intelligence could manage. Because that's what people come to commentary channels for. They come, hopefully, because the commentary is actually in some way meaningful. But if the commentary isn't meaningful, and then you come out and say, don't judge me for what I'm saying, I'm just reading from a script, that's not going to help your case. That's just going to make it worse. Moron. Moving on.
Banana.
And take a whole team behind us. That's why we're X-Play and not Atom Play. We have done the experiment and controlled for the variables. Atom will read a script written by the same writer that I will read the other half of the script for, but I'll be the one.
So in other words, no one here is exhibiting any independent thought or actual insight from an actual fan of these things. Everyone on screen is just a human marionette that is reading somebody else's words. You're not helping your case, dear.
My biggest issue is the lack of consistency of topics.
Yeah, she's gonna get back into it. She's gonna claim that the reason why she gets singled out for this is because something sexism. Or maybe the other guys just have more likable personas than you. Because even among actors, a good actor can make something sound organic.
Right.
Whereas a bad actor comes off as stiff and stilted.
Like, preferably, if you're going to have a script or a review on something, write it yourself. Preferably, that's how I see it. So at least you're able, like, at least it's coming from you. Like, when I used to do videos on my other channel, I would write the scripts myself, and I would basically just talk out and then type it down so it comes off more naturally.
Yeah, so that you didn't ramble or get off topic or whatever, or to minimize the ums and the ahs. And that would be one thing. That would be perfectly fine. But she's basically saying they have a team of writers working for them who do all the actual substantive work for them, and then they just come out and are the mouthpieces. And that might be why you get more hate than the other presenters do, because at the very least, the other presenters look and sound like guys who might be into this stuff. You, my dear, sound like everyone else's bitchy mom that doesn't like video games and wants their kids to stop playing them, frankly. If we're going to be entirely honest with ourselves, you don't sound like somebody who enjoys video games. You sound like somebody who gets enjoyment out of removing other people's enjoyment of video games. And that might just be part of the problem there. Because you're basically admitting that you're contractually obligated to be talking heads, and you're not even any good at that, because talking heads at least have to have some kind of charisma so that they can be convincing when they say the things they're told to read. Banana.
flamed. And yeah, it also happens to Gerard and TBH, but that doesn't discount the sexism of how it happens to me when it does. Both things can be true, that there is a general hatred of any change that isn't Adam, and that all receive special flame just for being a woman. And I wish I could turn the camera around so that you could.
Okay, so you just admitted it happens to your co-host as well. And maybe it doesn't happen to Adam because Adam has proved himself as a true gamer and not as a poser, not as a mouthpiece, not as a pretender. So, yeah, no. Even though I concede that it might also be true, there might be sexism. Number one, what do you define as sexism? And number two, why do you define it as that? And number three, you just gave us a counterexample to the very thing you're talking about, in that it also happens to your two male presenters who also haven't proved themselves. And again, it might just be down to the fact that you are lacking charisma, and judging by this rant, you're getting extremely angry with people who make questions of you as to like why do you always come off as so stiff and so stilted? And now we know why. It's because unlike your other male presenters who get this bullshit, even when you get criticized, you don't chalk it up to I'm getting criticism because something I've done. You chalk it up to I'm getting criticism at least partially because of the woman card. And yeah, no, there's a reason why there has always been a female host on G4, and that most of those women don't usually get this kind of shit. It's because A, they had likable, engaging personalities, and yes, they were also very attractive, and I'm not going to act like that was never a factor, but they also were likable people with likable personas, whereas you appear to be resentful of the fact that you have to affect a likable persona. You get, in your perfect world, it seems like you would get to be as bitchy as possible to everyone, and everyone would still laugh along with you, despite how bitchy you were to them. And yeah, no, that doesn't work for you, doesn't work for Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel, doesn't work for Daenerys freaking Targaryen in the final season of Game of Thrones. If you act like a cocky son of a bitch, then you're gonna get treated like a cocky son of a bitch. Sorry, them's the breaks. You don't get to morally justify being an asshole just because you have this abstract socio-cultural woo-woo reason to be an asshole. It doesn't work that way. The only time those kind of assholes are acceptable to some degree is when they're not supposed to be moral paragons. They're in the process of reforming themselves, using a couple notable fictional examples. That's the difference between Tony Stark, for example, or Thor and Captain Marvel. Because when Tony Stark acts like an asshole, he gets shrapnel to the chest and beat the fuck out of. When Thor acts like an asshole, he gets no hammered for you, and so on. But when Captain Marvel acts like an asshole, she's just rising to the occasion and actualizing her power, and so on and so on and so forth. Which works for a character like Captain America, because a character like Captain America is humble to begin with. But Captain Marvel only goes from a angry self-righteous bitch to a justified angry self-righteous bitch. And at no point in any part of the process did she learn any humility. Well, that works just as much for actual human beings as it does for fictional characters. You can't act like an asshole with no reforming or redeeming qualities and admit that you're not even doing the bulk of your own job and expect people not to be angry. Banana.
Yep. One sec.
Okay.
Yeah. Banana.
Banana.
See the incredible team that make X-Play. Half of our producers and writers are women. Emily, Abby, Megan, Joe, Jake, Zipper, Gabby, It goes on and on and on. Former writers that are now on ATOS like Vanessa. When you're in our DMs or on those YouTube comments or in Twitch chat right now, those reactionary threads, they...
And do you not see how rants like this aren't exactly like helping, right? Because you could have come out and been like, you know, jovial and self-depreciating about it. You could have come out and, you know, been a bit lighthearted about it. You could have come out and at least acknowledged that even though some of the things people said made you uncomfortable, you understand that someone finding you attractive is at least supposed to be a compliment. You could have done those things, but no, you come out with the moral self-righteousness and so on and so forth. Yeah, no, you were wrong to begin with, and you're not helping yourself. So have fun digging the hole in deeper, love. Banana.
Thinking that I'm somehow ruining your current X-Play experience because you can't objectify me how you previously did to Morgan, or that I'm somehow less qualified to speak on something, but you can't quite put your finger on why, even though I'm reading the exact same script as Adam, but you have no problem with he's part of it. You're letting your unconscious biases ruin my day, and you're gatekeeping the gaming space.
You know, if a man said the rant that you just said, he would have gotten fired and pilloried in effigy. You say it, and the Twitterati lionize you, and the fans shun you. So, as long as we're talking about double standards, have you ever in your life heard a man obfuscate criticism by using the sexism card? Because I've existed on this earth as a man for 26 years, and I've never in my life heard a man use the sexism card in earnest to get himself out of anything resembling a legitimate criticism. But you get to, and you get to admit publicly and kind of throw your own
biases.
Well, your own co-workers under the bus while doing it, that you don't actually believe any of the shit you say, that you're just a human marionette. And you don't understand why that's not going to get you off the hook with gamers, because you see, nerds are very meritocracy focused. It's kind of one of the things that defines us. And if our question is this person here for meritocratic reasons, and you come up with the answer, no, but it doesn't matter, because woman card, do you not see how that's not going to get you off the hook? That's just going to confirm what everyone else was already thinking. Banana.
Right.
So maybe for 2022, we'd be a bit nicer, a bit more self-reflective, and we enjoy the fact that people are working hard to make free content for you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace.
And the subscriber count fell in half the day after this was published. So ask and it is given. But also, speaking of self-reflection and being nicer, will that ever apply to you and people in positions of actual power? Like, ever? Will that ever apply to the people who are saying rants like this? Will it ever occur to you that maybe if you want a world that's more self-reflective and nicer, maybe you should try being more self-reflective and nicer? Ever? Question mark? Okay, next thing. Wow, Corrupt really does stir the pot when he shows up, because it took us like an hour and a half to get through even half of our first topic when he was here, and then the minute he leaves, we can get through it, like, the next topic in, like, 20 minutes.
Mm.
This is why we wanted Corrupt Bond, folks, because he's very good at storing the drink.
Alright, teaser trailer for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio for Netflix.
Guillermo del Toro does stop motion, and it is the most glorious thing ever, surprising no one.
Shall we?
Banana.
Banana.
I want to tell you a story. It's a story you may think you know, but you don't. No, really. You see, I, Sebastian J. Cricket, was there.
The J, I'm hoping, stands for Jiminy, because otherwise this just fail.
Hey, Don?
What?
I was going to say you're probably being a little picky, but then I remembered it's you, so.
I was going to say I was expecting the disappointed look or the fuck off, but
Anyway, shall we?
yep, banana.
There. As a matter of fact, I actually lived in the heart of the wooden boy.
Also, I'm pretty sure that's Ewan McGregor doing the voice there for Sebastian Jiminy Cricket, and yes, I'm going with that because it doesn't work as well otherwise. So until his middle initial is expounded upon, I'm going with Jiminy. But yes, I am all kinds of here for Guillermo del Toro does stop motion Pinocchio with Ewan McGregor as the cricket.
I mean, I'm interested. Obviously, I'm always for Guillermo del Toro stuff, so.
And side note, while we're asking for things, Netflix and Guillermo del Toro, since Netflix and Guillermo del Toro are apparently thick as thieves lately, what with Troll Hunters and now this, can Guillermo del Toro be a guest writer on at least one episode of the upcoming Netflix Sandman series, please? Because Guillermo del Toro would kill the episode based on Midsummer Night's Dream. And also, while I'm asking for things, I'd like him also to be there when they do the Hop Gadling episodes as well. Basically, have Guillermo del Toro show run all the episodes that have to do with like fantasy stuff. That seems to me like a golden win, because Neil Gaiman and Guillermo del Toro working together would be amazing. And given how close Netflix worked with Guillermo del Toro, I think it'd be a missed opportunity otherwise.
And with that, I don't have anything else done.
Nope, that's another one done and dusted, and we'll be doing more catch up next week. So
yeah,
see you all then, folks.
Yeah. So I'm going to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and